to Mark Reed Atheism, and today we're chatting with Perry, the preacher, who wants to have a chat with me and just a nice cordial discussion on theology and worldviews. So I want to introduce the preacher, and we can sort of get started. Sorry there, Perry. Is there anything maybe you want to do an introduction, tell people about yourself, where they can find you and what you're up to?
My name is Perry Green, Perry, Green with an E at the end. The channel I have is called The Preacher. You gotta look it all up. It's Perry Green, The Preacher. You'll see the Blue Angel logo. It should still be on here or something similar to it. Let me see if it does it. Yeah, it does. So that's not the new one, but it's similar. You'll see it. You can't.
I should be able to drop a link for you, mate. 1 second.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Just continue, and I'll do that.
Yeah. So me and Mark have talked on Amy Newman's channel a couple times. It's usually pretty rowdy, but I figured a decent sit down one-on-one wouldn't be a bad plan. I prefer talking to atheists than talking to fake believers. That's for sure. That is all. That is a for sure. I can't stand talking to people that say they believe and they don't even line up with the book. But yeah, that's about it, man. I just figured we'd have a good chat.
Yeah, thanks, Perry. Yeah, I've got some questions about what constitutes a fake believer, but to start off, I'll just sort of say, yeah, I'm an atheist. I sort of lean towards agnosticism or soft atheism, depending on how you define it. And we can sort of get into definitions and what you think of as atheism and what I think of as atheism. But more recently, I've sort of been leaning towards a more hard stance on atheism, that I do not believe that a God exists. So yeah, we can discuss that. But if I'd like to know sort of which denomination or which sort of what you define as God.
No denomination. None.
Okay.
Religion is for sinners.
Okay. All right. So, what do you believe God is then? How would you define that concept or
creator,
or entity?
man, of it all? He's where it all came from.
Okay. Well, I don't know. That's kind of a strange definition, because you could sort of say that just from my perspective, I could say, hey, a higher dimensional alien could create everything, and that wouldn't entail to me what a God is. So I presume there's some more to that creator that makes it a God rather than an advanced being or something that creates universes.
Creator of it all, man. He spoke, he said, let it be, and it was. That's it. It's as simple as it can be.
Okay, so by all, do you mean the universe or cosmos in general? Where does your boundaries? Okay, so everything that exists at all in any possible world. Okay, any dimension kind of thing.
All of it. Yeah, he just created it all. He just spoke, and it was.
Right, and does this creator have any tangible impact on the world today? Like, is it just created it and then ducked out, or is there some sort of impact on our sort of, well, A, our material lives, and B, anything else in the creation?
You're still breathing, right?
I am, but I think that's sort of oxygen exchanging in my lungs. I'm not sure.
Right, but if it was your time, you wouldn't be here no more. Yeah.
Okay, so we can't live without. So if this creator wasn't there now, we'd just drop dead.
Right.
Okay, so it does more than just create, because it has to interact to keep us alive. Okay. So how can you tell that it's interacting? Like, what would you see as a justification for this creator interacting and keeping us alive?
You're still breathing.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, I am still breathing, but the way I see it is that there are physical processes that sort of keep me alive, and I won't be breathing forever.
Now, the frequency that those processes operates on, the vibration that holds it all together, the sound, so to speak, the voice that holds it all together is his voice.
Well, I mean, frequency and sort of, a sound. Do you mean sort of vibrations kind of stuff? Is that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So how do we go about testing these vibrations? How do we go about sort of being able to confirm that these vibrations are indeed a thing?
Actually, there is a way. It's called a tonoscope. Those are really cool.
A tonoscope.
Yeah, you should look into them. They're fun. Do you know
Okay.
anything about them?
I do not know.
No, you should look into it. It's cool.
Tonoscope.
Yep.
So they measure vibrations?
Sort of. And I wouldn't say measure vibration, but a certain pitch, a certain frequency will cause certain shapes, certain things to be made using sand or dirt or whatever.
Right. There's a word for that. I'm trying to find it. It's sympatics. Sympatics. It's basically, when you put something on a speaker with something, you put sand there and it forms
well,
these
that's
patterns.
what a tonoscope is. That's the name of the instrument. It's a tonoscope. It's
Okay. Well, I
something
didn't
they
know
can
that.
sing into and then create the actual pattern for whatever
Yeah.
frequency you're using.
Yeah, the creation of the patterns called sympatics, and I have heard of that. I couldn't recall the name for it, but
The
yeah,
a really good evidence of it is somebody who can hit that high C and that extremely high pitch high C and break a wine glass. How
right.
sound can destroy. Sound can do a lot of things. But that
Well, sure, yeah.
vibration is what holds us all together. And that all comes all the way back to Genesis 1, where he spoke and said, "Let it be," and it is. And then you can get into the Fibonacci sequence and 1.618. You can go that whole route, and you see that same thumbprint in everything, including your thumbprints, right? Everything we are is 1.618. It's and it's not just 1.618. I mean, the number just goes on and on and on. But it's like the golden ratio, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, and that's phi. But I don't know. Like, for as far as I know, sound is sort of the compression of air under vibrations, basically. I don't know how we link that to a creator god of some sort.
Because
How do you? Because he spoke in the first part of the Bible.
Yeah, he said, "Let it be," and it was. He spoke. That sound.
Right. I'm not sure I can sort of justify sort of saying that a book said that someone spoke and therefore all sound is a god. How do you make that link?
Well, I wouldn't say also. I mean, he's in control of everything, so everything has its own unique vibration. Everything has its own unique frequency because he spoke and said, "Let it be." So everything does have a frequency. Everything's got a breaking point. Everything's got. I mean, everything is held together by vibration. In
Well,
one
I
way,
don't.
shape, or form, or another, of
Yeah.
the right frequency can destroy rocks. The right frequency can destroy flesh. The right frequency can destroy a wine glass, but the right frequency can also hold them all together. They all have their own frequency.
Well, I don't disagree with, frequencies can do damage at the right frequency. I definitely would disagree that everything has a unique frequency. I think that a lot of our communications is based upon things having the same frequency.
Right. Well, some things do. Yeah, that's fair. Some things do, but
Yeah.
the fact that vibration holds everything together in itself, that is true.
Well, I don't think vibration holds everything together unless you subscribe to sort of string theory, um, which is that what you're getting at? String
No, I
theory
don't
and
know
the.
what string theory is.
Okay. Well, it sort of says that everything's made of small strings and they have a certain um, vibrational pitch that they're moving at, but that's highly theoretical. And I get that vibrations can cause things to be destroyed. I don't see vibrations holding things together.
Well, your heart beats. Yeah.
Well, let me just sort of posit something and throw something out there, because there's no sort of vibrations in space, because vibrations need a medium to go through, right? They can't
Well,
just.
wait. The other day, see, now this is where I get to use the astrologers. So the other
Okay.
day, this new fake, I personally don't really buy it, but they're trying to sell it to the public that they now they hear sounds out of a black hole. Did you hear about that the other day?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so there is sound in space.
Um, there's no. I think that's something different. We can kind of, we're kind of sort of hearing the energy that the black hole's throwing off, the
It's
energy
sound.
going around it.
It's
Um,
they recorded it.
yeah, yeah. I don't know how you do. I must admit I'm not familiar with that, but
It just happened like 2 days ago, so I didn't really expect you to know about it, but
oh,
I
okay.
don't subscribe to
Yeah,
that
I'll
either.
have a look.
I think I think all the telescope and satellite garbage is just that garbage. I think it's just them trying to I mean, NASA, and that serpent tongue going through it is the T. It's all ugh, ugh. People trying to find a way around admitting God exists.
Yeah, okay. So it's basically we might not be able to hear sound in space, but that doesn't mean there is any. Well, I mean that's interesting.
Well, no, they recorded
Um,
it. They
yeah,
recorded
so
the black hole.
well, it's propagating through the gases surrounding the black hole, right? So it's not
It's sound,
traveling through space; it's traveling through the gases around the black hole. That's what they're recording.
but it's sound.
So well, yeah, but the whole point is that when you have the vacuum of space, right, you don't have a medium for sound, because sound is the vibration of the molecules.
I don't think they've ever
Can't
gone to
have
space.
sound. You don't think they've gone to space?
No. No, I think it's all a load of shit.
Okay.
All of it.
Right. Are you sort of a flat earther kind of thing? Do you think that the world is flat, or
I don't
is
think it
that
matters.
you have a problem with? Okay.
I don't think it matters. Flat, round, whatever, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, at the end of the day, the whole thing, like earlier when you said you kind of curiosity strikes when I talk about fake believers, right?
Right.
There's there's there is fake believers, lots of billions of them. There is fake believers, and then there's the very few real ones. And I mean, it's just everybody that sins is of the devil, man.
So do you think I sin and of the devil somehow?
Well, you don't even believe in God, so you're definitely of the devil.
What would that look like? I mean, what would you expect to for that to be like? You know,
I think there's no look for it, man. Me and you, we're both people, right? Like we both, we're both people. So
right.
we look the same. I mean, we look the same, maybe different color eyes, whatever. That doesn't matter. But we both look the same. But it's not about what you look like. It's about where your heart's at.
Well, I mean, my heart pumps blood around my body. It doesn't do anything other than that. That's what it's for. But it's just strange to me that you
What
say,
about love? Do you
because
love
I
anything?
don't. Oh yeah, I love my wife very
You
deeply.
love your wife.
Um,
Okay, so
yeah, sure,
you love your wife. I mean,
sure.
but God created her too, and you don't love him. So how can you love your wife?
Well, I mean, I don't believe in a God, and I don't believe God created her. I think her parents did.
Well, by design.
Well, I don't think there was design. I don't believe in a God, and I don't believe in a devil. So that's sort of why I'm asking, what would it look like? Because I don't believe in a devil. So how would I be of the devil if I've got no even inkling that it exists?
You can't see oxygen, but you believe you can breathe.
Well, we can observe oxygen. We can measure oxygen. We can
If you want to
burn.
get technical, but right now, breathing in, you can't see it, and you
Well,
believe it's there.
sure, but we don't have to see things in order to measure its working, right? I mean, we're on computers at the moment.
Beautiful,
I don't see
beautifully
the.
put.
I
We
don't
don't
have
have
to
to see it
see.
to
Yeah,
measure it.
yeah, but we
Right.
don't see the electricity. What we do see is the effects of the electricity, which sort of leads me back to my question: what effects should we see of a god? But you seem to be saying, well,
I
everything.
have the answer for that. That's beautiful.
Right.
Right. So I can demonstrate this with you if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. So what's the best way to do this? If there's two different ways I can go about this, and I'll try both if that's okay with you. So the first one, I want to just see how this goes. So if I have on an unclean piece of clothing, right? And I touch, and there's a table, let's say there's a table with some food on there. If I have on an unclean piece of clothing and I touch the food, is the food unclean?
If you haven't, not necessarily.
Okay, so you're not
No.
we can't go that route with it. Let's try it this way. So, is how do I do this? Is killing somebody wrong?
It depends on the circumstances. In self-defense, I don't think it is. I think that's perfectly acceptable. If it is for some other reason, like a motivated, planned reason, then yes.
So then, while you ask that, so all the soldiers that went to Afghanistan and Iraq, right, for
Mhm.
big money interests, not for they didn't go there for to keep America safe. They went there for financial interests, right? All the soldiers that went there and killed millions of people.
Well, that's a difficult question, Perry. I don't think all the soldiers went there for their personal financial interest. I think that a lot of them did believe what they were doing was the right thing.
Did they
I
get paid for it?
Well, I think that the sort of private companies that had interests in the country and the private security firms definitely had a financial interest.
Did the
But I think,
soldiers get paid for it?
well, you're talking about why they killed, right? Why a soldier would kill somebody, and a lot of the time it isn't for a financial interest. It's because,
So they didn't get paid.
well, of course they got paid, but that's sort of
So then
assumed.
that's what they did it for.
Well, no, that's not the case at all. A teacher may get paid for being for teaching. It doesn't mean that that's why they teach. They may teach because they enjoy teaching and they want to pass along
So
knowledge.
they enjoy killing people, and they went to. Is that's
Perhaps
where it's
some of
going?
them, yeah,
Right.
that's possible that some of them did enjoy killing while they were. That's why they took the thing. It's possible, sure, but I wouldn't claim to know the internal
Okay.
growth of all their minds. But I believe that some of them genuinely thought they were doing the right thing by being there, trying to help the people of Iraq. I think it's a terrible. I don't agree with what they think, but you're talking about people's beliefs here.
Okay, so now what I'm doing, and the reason I asked you this question is
Yeah.
because we just opened the door to how you're like, well, I think this and I think that, and you've got opinions. You're opinionated about these different things and what you consider to be right versus wrong. So you,
Uh,
in yourself, have the knowledge of right and wrong, the knowledge of good and evil, which in itself is the fingerprint of the devil in your life.
I don't take. So you're talking about morality now, and I don't get
Yes,
my morality from any devil or any
you
supernatural
do
place.
though.
It comes.
You don't want to admit it, but you did.
Okay, well, you think I do,
I
and I
know
think
you do.
I don't.
I
Well, I
know
mean
you.
that's a pretty strong claim. Can you demonstrate that in some way?
Yeah, Adam and Eve ate off of the tree and they received the knowledge of good and evil and got kicked out of the garden. You are
Yeah.
still suffering from that.
Yeah. So Perry, that's sort of just another claim because then I can sort of go, well, how do you know that Adam and Eve ate from the tree, kind of thing.
Well, how do you know there is no God?
Well, I don't claim to know there is no God. I don't. I believe there is no God, and those are
So,
two separate things.
right
I'll
now,
just sort of define knowledge for you. Just a second, Perry. I'll just define knowledge as sort of a justified true belief. So when you make a knowledge claim, you're basically saying, "Hey, I'm justified in believing this, and it is true." Now, the reason why I don't believe there's a God is because a lot of the gods are incoherent that I hear from people. They just don't make sense. But the main reason is because usually a god is defined as a mind of some way, some kind of intelligent process. and do stop me if this doesn't apply to the God you're talking about. But I do not believe that you can have an intelligent mind without a brain to hold it. The way we understand brains and minds to work, we need firing of the neurons. We need these certain physical things to occur in order for thought to take place. Sorry?
You need frequency.
I don't think that's frequency. That's sort of neurons are electrochemical, I believe.
But without the heartbeat, the brain doesn't work.
Well, that's just oxygenating the brain. Like, so it's just pumping blood around the body. Without the lungs, the brain
causes it. What causes it to start beating?
What causes what to start beating?
What causes your heart to start beating?
Well, it beats because of electrical signals.
What causes it to beat, though? What causes that first initial signal?
Perry, if you think about this, like if you get paddles, right, and somebody's heart has stopped, and you apply the paddles and put a charge of electricity through them, they will respond. That's sort of, CPR 101. The thing that causes our heart to beat to start off with is an electrical signal from the start, as our nervous system develops.
From where?
Well, it's from the nervous system, which develops in the womb.
Right, but all of that had to be because there was a woman already and a man already whose hearts were beating that came together. All of that, taking it all the way back, go all the way back. Where did it come from?
Okay. What do you mean, humanity in general?
Yeah, where did it come from?
Well, we evolved, and the best answer for where that came from, where life came from, is abiogenesis, although that's not really set in stone, and it's not, 100%
It's not real. So,
well, I mean, just
with
because
evolution,
something is understood doesn't mean it's not real.
And the question that I've asked every atheist that I've talked to, and none of them can answer, right? If you want to go based on evolution, okay, fine, go based on evolution, but there's one thing evolution doesn't account for, and that's where did the information in the DNA come from?
Protein chains.
Where did they come from? Where did the information to make those, the programming that they have? Everybody's DNA has programming in it. That you're going to have brown eyes, you're going to have black hair, you're going to have blue eyes, you're going to have this, you're going to have this. Your DNA is programmed to make you into this being. Where did the information come from?
It basically, abiogenesis is our best guess. So what you're asking is what's the origin of life? Unlike evolution, which is sort of a theory in science, it's been pretty well explained, although there are, big disagreements on all kinds of things about it. Abiogenesis isn't theory. What we think is that sort of amino acids formed first, made up of chemicals from the heating.
Where'd all that come from?
Well, as I explained, the heating and drying of proteins formed protein chains, amino acids, which then became RNA or proto-RNA, then RNA, then formed.
Where did all that come from?
Well, where do chemicals come from? They come from.
Where do they come from?
Yeah, they come from sort of component atoms that have been.
Where did those come from?
Sorry?
Where did those come from?
Well,
I'm going to ask you till we get all the way back.
The Earth. Well, if you want to go straight back to the origin of the universe, do you want to start there, maybe?
I mean, you can, yeah.
Yeah, so planets formed via accretion disks. Things that gave us heavy metals were supernovae. Yeah, so when you go all the way back to the Big Bang, basically you have a large amount of...
Mark, you're a smart dude, man. You really buy that shit?
Yeah, there's a lot of evidence to suggest it. Like
there's none.
Cosmic
there's no
background.
evidence.
What do you mean?
I mean, there's no evidence for that. It's all bullshit. Even you said yourself that they all disagree. Everybody disagree. Nobody.
Yeah.
No atheist. No two atheists both agree on everything.
Well, the problem is, Perry, that just because we don't know something doesn't mean that you can just say, hey, well, then it was God. This is called God of the gaps.
Well,
It's when
if
you're
you go
basically
by
saying,
the Bible does explain everything that you're not able to answer.
does it? Where does
Yeah.
God come from?
It doesn't tell you that. He just is. There
Well,
is none before him. There will be none after him. He just is.
so then you don't know where God came from.
Well, it's faith, right? I have faith. I have that. I
Well,
don't
that
need to know
doesn't
where God came
explain
from.
where God came from, unfortunately.
It
See, here's
doesn't.
the problem,
You don't
Perry.
need to.
God doesn't actually explain anything.
He
It
does.
just basically says there's a being that doesn't need to be explained. We don't understand anything about it. When we're talking about explanatory power, right? Have you ever heard this term before, explanatory power?
No.
Okay, so we sort of see things in how much it explains and how well it explains them. So if you ask me, like I've got a cut on my face, and you say, "Hey, where did you get that cut?" and I say, um, Hawaii, it doesn't explain very much, right? It doesn't explain how I got the cut. It's just a very, very loose answer. If I say, "Hey, I was in Hawaii and I tripped over and hit my head on a bar because I was very drunk," that's got way more explanatory power.
Right.
The problem is that God doesn't actually explain anything, because you can say, "Hey, God created sort of life," but then I say, "But how did that happen?"
He spoke.
And yeah, but that doesn't explain the process that it happened. Like if you talk to me just before about abiogenesis, and I go through sort of protein chains and then RNA, DNA, all of these different things.
He does explain how it happened. He spoke, and the living things came out of the water and onto the land.
Yeah, that doesn't really explain the process. Do you understand what I mean by process?
Right, to be fair, Mark, even with
Yeah.
all the scientific shit you're giving me, you're not explaining it either. You're
No,
just
not that well.
you're like
Correct.
protons and this and this and this and this and this, but none of that is factual. None of that is truth. None of that is reality. Like, I mean, to a certain extent, you can say, okay, red blood cells, they make more red blood cells. They divide, and we can do that. That's fine, because that does happen. You can see that under a microscope. But the origin of life, your answer is as hollow, if not more hollow than mine.
Well, as I said, that there's still a lot of questions, and unlike evolution, that it hasn't been solidified yet. And I made sure to say that. But I could point you to papers where people do understand the process of abiogenesis way more than I do. And I would have trouble understanding what they're talking about with these sort of monopolymers and stuff like that. You know, all these different things, because I'm not proficient in that field. But you do realize there are people that are, that people that study these kind of things.
But I realize that they're people just like me and you. They're no different than us. And those people, like you, no offense, and I don't mean this to offend you, but they are people just like you that are trying to find anything they can to run from God, and any excuse that they can to try and say God's not real. And so all their big words and all their papers and all their researches and all of it, everything they do, is not going to stop them from death. They're going to die. And when they die, they're going to answer for they're going to answer for life. They're going to answer for their life and what they did with it. And just like you, they run from God, and they cling to all these fucking ideas that don't make any sense. As I think we've both, I mean, like you just said, you don't understand the shit that they write. You have said that they disagree. They're clinging to shit that they don't even believe, to try and justify writing God out of their life.
So I think you've sort of taken sort of a few steps down there, which I didn't go to. So I'll try and clear them up. Nobody's running from God. There's a lot of scientists who are theists and do devoutly believe in God. One example I use is Francis Collins, who used to head up the Human Genome Project and mapped human DNA, who's devoutly religious. So they're not running from God, and I'm not running from God. It would be nice if there was a God. It would be nice if there was like
there is
well, it would be nice, but I don't believe that. They're scientists, so they participate in the scientific method. They're not running from any conclusion of God. It's just the evidence hasn't pointed that way yet.
Yes, it
They
has.
do, the explanations do make sense. That they do make sense, and especially if you're trained in that field, or even educate yourself a bit on that field, like evolution. A lot of it doesn't make sense to people because they haven't had any education in it. They do disagree, and science does change. But that's the beautiful thing about science, that we're constantly updating with what we know now.
The beautiful thing about God is that he doesn't change.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem, because if you take
For
something
who?
for humanity,
For the
if
people
you
who
take,
don't believe in him, yeah. For the
well,
people that do, that's not a problem at all.
not really. It's sort of that like, take for instance the Bible. It doesn't change, but there's many different interpretations of it, and you can
Counterfeit.
almost,
There's a lot of counterfeits. You're right.
well, I mean, yeah, but even if someone believes the same thing as you do, Perry, you've got to admit that the interpretations are not identically the same. There's always some variation
I don't
in there.
interpret it. I don't interpret it though. That's
You don't
for me.
interpret.
No, I don't interpret it. It just means what it
Okay,
says. And then, like when you talk about scientists that are devoutly religious, I put it in. I gotta put it in. Can I see it? Gotta put it in quotes. Right, the scientists that
okay,
are religious, that say they believe in Jesus, that are still chasing at science. That's
yeah.
where the Bible comes in, and that's where you're able to tell the difference between a fake believer and a real one. Is it's all going to boil down to sin, which again is going to take you back to the knowledge of good and evil, which you do still have, which is evidence of God in your face every day, all day. Every time you look at something and say that's wrong, or you think you look at something and say that's right, that's the knowledge of good and evil in you working that which is unholy.
Well, it's. I don't think that good and evil are particularly good descriptors for what's sort of immoral and moral. I think that morality is required to have a society, because if you just go around doing whatever you want, we won't have a society anymore. We'll just
That's
have
what man's laws are. That's what man's laws are for, and those don't even work. So,
well, I mean, there's problems, but yeah.
In all fairness, those don't even work. So morality really in itself, as you even just pointed out, doesn't exist. So for you to feel that you have any type of morality proves that the knowledge of good and evil does exist for the people that have it.
Well, I don't think so. I think that sort of my moral system is based upon two innate traits of particularly social mammals. So one is empathy and the other is reciprocity. Now we can measure these in other animals. We can like, so I can show you a video where they demonstrated reciprocity in monkeys. Basically, a monkey is given a piece of cucumber for something, and the monkey doesn't mind the cucumber, it's fine, and he'll do the task that he's required to get that food. If they get another monkey in the next cage to do it and give it a grape, it loses the plot.
I love that.
And yeah, and it shows reciprocity, that we believe that things like, if I do work and I get X, you shouldn't do the same work and get Y, because that's unfair. And that seems to be an innate concept unique to social mammals.
But if you agreed to do it for Y and somebody else got X, then Y is what you agreed to.
Sure.
Right.
That's these monkeys didn't agree to anything. If we were just doing
it. He took the cucumber to do the task, and when the other one got the grape, he was mad about it.
Yeah.
He thought it was, that was his. He got upset because he wanted the grape. He knew the grape tasted better.
Yeah, so don't get me wrong. I don't think that these emotions like empathy and reciprocity are a moral system by themselves. They don't construct any kind of ought system that society would base a morality upon, but they are useful tools to evaluating what is right and what is wrong.
Well, there is no right and wrong. That's where I stand. There is no right and wrong. Man's laws are there to sort of guide you, right? But most of the time, people can't follow those. The average adult commits, like, I think it's 4 felonies a week unknowingly. So that's
I don't think
statistically.
so,
Hmm?
Perry. I'd like to see a citation on that. I don't think
I
that's
would have to
true.
find it. It is the actual statistic. It's like the average adult commits, it's 3 or 4 different felonies a week. Hang on. I'll look it up.
Well, and the problem there is we're not talking about legal things. We're talking about morality,
Moral.
not
Right. But that
legality.
moral thing, the Bible does cover that too. He said the law is written on your heart. And it is, and that's where you get your empathy and your reciprocity from. I don't have those things.
I don't think that's literal. I think that these emotions come from a evolution of social creatures, because nothing's written on my heart. My heart pumps blood around my body, as I said earlier. It's my mind that does all the evaluation. I'm a meta-ethical relativist, so I think that as long as we can agree on an objective or a goal for society, that society can implement moral judgments based upon that goal. For instance, if we agree that well-being or happiness or whatever your metric is what we're after in a society, then we can do an ought proposition for
I put the link in the private chat. It's a
Yes.
Harvard study. Actually, they said the average adult commits 3 felonies a day because the legal system has over criminalized everything to everybody. It is an actual thing. But the knowledge of good and evil in itself is evidence of creation, because that's the oldest text in the world would be Genesis, and it says that's what happened. That's what I'm going to go by. I'm going to
Why
go
would
by
it be the
something that
oldest
doesn't
text
change.
in the world? I mean,
Genesis,
the Bhagavad
the Bible
Gita
is
is
the oldest
older
text in the
than that. No, it's not. The Bhagavad Gita, the I forget how to pronounce it. The Hindu texts are older than the Bible.
No.
I don't
the
understand.
copies that they have might be, but the text itself has been since the beginning.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know you believe that, but I don't see any reason to believe that, Perry. It's just, we've dated these books and they've sort of said that the Hindu texts are in fact older. But I don't know as well how the age of something sort of correlates to the truthfulness on it. I would imagine.
Well, I mean, it stood the test of time. It stood the test of time. It is in everything. It is everywhere you go, every corner. I mean, even though you're in Australia, I bet within a couple of kilometers from your house, there's a heathen building on a corner somewhere, right?
There's a what's that?
Heathen building. That's what I call churches.
Oh, okay. Possibly, yeah. I probably.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, we're up here now talking about God.
There's also a mosque near me and a Buddhist temple as well.
Yeah, I call those heathen buildings too. Those are heathen buildings too. Same thing. And they all operate on the same. But all those religions, all those people operate on the same sin, repent, repeat, sin, repent, repeat, sin, repent, repeat. The same. I mean, I'm sure even you, being an atheist, you probably have some form of atonement for when you break your own morals, right?
I think I have for other people. I don't see as an atonement to another being. It's only myself that I am beholden to.
Right, and do you feel like you need that, like guilt, right? Do you feel guilt?
Occasionally, sure, but I don't think that comes from any God. I think that's a natural.
It comes from breaking the law written on your heart.
If you let me finish, Perry, just let me finish. I think that's a natural reaction to empathy. That when we empathize, we can feel what the other person would feel and imagine ourselves in that situation. And that's been demonstrated in a lot of papers. And it's not just within humans; it's within all of the social animal species.
I'm not talking about empathy. I'm talking about when you do something that you think is wrong, you feel bad for it.
Yeah, and the reason why is because I can empathize with the person that I have wronged.
No, I'm not
It's
talking about
not.
wronging somebody in specific. I'm talking about like when you do something wrong in your own life, by
Yeah,
yourself,
sure.
even by
Yeah, well,
yourself.
I mean, if I'm not affecting anybody, it's not wrong. If I'm having no impact on society or other people, then I'm struggling to think what could be that I could do that would be wrong that would impact that wouldn't impact on anybody else. Maybe you could name something that I would do that's wrong that has no impact on society or
I
anybody else.
can't do that though. I'm barred from doing that because I don't believe in right and wrong. I know better. There is no
Okay.
right and wrong. I don't
Well,
have
yeah.
what you say you feel. I don't have that.
Yeah, so the whole point is that if something I do has no impact on anybody else, then it isn't wrong. It's amoral. It has no moral standing. Morality is sort of judged as our interact sort of as a community, how we interact with others and how we affect others. It's what we ought to do with other people, not sort of by ourselves.
So you don't think it's possible that that law is just written on your heart, like the Bible says?
No, I have no reason to believe that at
But
all.
that's but where I'm coming from is that that is exactly what it is. That is the law written on your heart. You are showing the signs of everything that the Bible says is
Well, I'm
true.
not stopping you from believing that, Perry, but
Right.
I don't believe it because you
Right.
cannot in any way give me
You
any evidence that that is actually the case. We
right.
have
Well,
very
I
good
am. I'm showing it
explanations for
in
these
yourself,
things, and none of them seem to be a god.
but I'm showing you the evidence within yourself. It's within you already.
Okay, so the problem here is what you're doing is you're making sort of a post hoc justification. You're going, okay, you have these fear. So what is it called? Affirming the consequent. You're basically saying, if God exists, you should have these feelings on your heart. You have these feelings on your heart, therefore God exists. It's called
Bingo.
affirming the
Yeah.
consequence. Yep, you can do that with literally anything. I can say, if aliens came down and made you wear a hat, I would expect to see a hat on your head. There's a hat on your head, therefore aliens came down and made you wear it.
But that's not in the Bible though.
That's the same argument, Perry. That's
Not
exactly the
because
same.
you don't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
a
it is.
book that says aliens came down and did that.
Well, if I had, I could get a book that said aliens anal probe people. I could do that. And if aliens anal probed you, I'd expect to see a hat. I see a hat, therefore aliens. It's the same argument. It's sort
It's
of a
not.
very, yeah, it is. It's called affirming the consequent. It's sort of a very, um, it's sort of a logical disconnect between saying, hey, there's a consequence of this thing that I believe. The consequence exists, therefore the thing I believe is true.
Mark,
It doesn't meet up.
Mark, the Bible
Yeah,
said all those things long before you were ever born.
yeah,
Ever.
I don't care
And
what the
you
Bible
have
says.
I know, you have exact everything, every to a T fulfilled everything that the Bible said would be in someone like you. And you're
Well,
just writing that off like it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. It's the same as any other book from the ancient world out there.
Nope, it's
There's
not.
no.
I wish it was. It's not.
Well, that's, I know you think it's a special example. I know that you think that the Bible is this special
What
example that isn't like other books out there. And I'm sorry to say that that's because you're sort of putting special emphasis on it. If
can
you
we
look at it in purely a vacuum, there's no reason to believe that the claims in it are true.
there's plenty of reason to believe it. I mean,
Why?
not just the claims talking about like the law in your heart, the knowledge of good and evil, all those things,
Right.
but I mean like Sodom and Gomorrah, they're still there, right? There's this solid ash filled with sulfur balls that came from the sky and destroyed
Uh,
them. They're still there.
I know people have claimed to find Sodom and Gomorrah. They've kind of been, the geologists have actually said they haven't. The
They
same
have.
guy that keeps finding the Ark time and time again sort of claimed to find them. And
Mm-mm. No. That wasn't Ron Wyatt. Ron Wyatt, I know he
Ron White,
claimed right. I know who you're talking about. I,
yeah,
I I don't know, but I will say this that modern scientists have gone there and have confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt this is where Sodom and Gomorrah was, where it should have been, and there's 5 cities that you can still see that are solid ash that you can literally walk up to and go dig out chunks of sulfur from the ash that is still standing there. Sodom and Gomorrah all day long.
I don't think so, Perry. I don't
So,
think Sodom and Gomorrah has been
so
confirmed,
this is
and
this,
certainly
this
sort
is
of
where
their
it gets fun. So
destruction
even
hasn't been confirmed to be some
it
sort of
wouldn't matter, even if you were handed full evidence of God, you would still reject it, is what I'm showing you. My
no,
question
no.
is, why do you hate God so much?
I don't. As I said, I don't. You can't hate something that you don't believe exists. It'd be like hating.
You had to choose not to believe in him. You chose it.
No, no, I didn't. Perry, let me just ask you: does God want me to know that He exists?
Well, you already do know he exists.
I don't.
You do. That's why you may have to make the choice to not believe in
So,
him.
Perry, this is sort of one of the things that I find sort of problematic about your approach is that you're sort of now telling me what is going on inside my own brain.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and I don't believe you can tell that. And if you do think you can tell that, I can demonstrate to you that you are wrong. And I've done it before on Amy's stream. But
So,
you
how
can't.
old were you when you chose not to believe in God?
What I never chose. I was raised in a secular household. I didn't even know of a God concept until I was, in my teens.
So, in your teens, you chose.
I didn't choose. I just never believed in God from the day I was born to today. I
So,
guess I guess I did kind of think that the universe was God in a kind of pantheistic kind of way at one point, but it didn't last very long. And I don't think you can choose your beliefs any more than you can, like I think that on Amy's stream, I had the point, well, if you can choose your beliefs, you can choose not to believe in God. And obviously, you can't do that. And I respect that. You can't just say, hey, I choose not to believe in God, right?
I could,
You could, but you don't.
but never in a million years, no.
See, and that's the whole point. I think that when you say, well, I'm going to choose not to believe in God, and you do believe in God, then you're just saying it and pretending not to.
No, I could choose not to, but I choose to believe in God. I know
Okay,
better.
well, I mean, I don't think you can
Just like
choose.
you could choose to believe in God, but you choose not to.
I don't think so. I think that if I sort of today said, hey, I believe in God kind of thing, I think that I would know deep down that I still don't. I think I would know that I'm pretending basically. And I think that a lot of theists, or maybe not a lot, but I think that some theists do sort of say, yeah, I'm going to say I believe in God, but I don't really, sort of just attend church because of the social aspect and,
Church is not. That's not where. No, no.
well, we're
Real
talking about.
believers. That's. I mean, at the end of the day, if me trying to get you to believe in God, I get your standpoint. That's. I mean, that's why I just asked, why do you hate him? At the end of the day, I get where you're at, and that's fine. Whatever. So, instead of talking about you or me, what about like earlier the difference between a real believer and a non-believer?
Okay, well, here's where I think you're making a mistake because when I say they believe in God, look, I understand that you think they don't really believe in God; they're fake believers, kind of thing, or they may be believing
They
in the
think
wrong
they do.
God or something
Some of
like
them
that.
think they
Well,
do.
yeah, and this is the problem because when we say belief, so it's epistemology versus ontology, right? So it's belief versus what actually is. What is the actual thing? So when I say I don't believe, um, or they don't believe rather, sorry, it doesn't say anything whether they're right or not. It doesn't say whether their God exists or whether they're worshipping the wrong God or anything about it. They still believe in a God concept of some sort, whether or not that concept is true. So I don't think that makes them fake. I think that makes them mistaken from my perspective, maybe mistaken from your perspective, but I don't see why that would make them fake as such. It's a very weird term to use.
So you just said something ironic, right?
Okay.
That they would be mistaken, but you made the comment that there would be a truth,
A what?
a truth,
A truth.
a truth. I'd have to
Well,
rewind and see exactly how you worded it, but you had said that
yeah.
right?
Well, it will be true whether a God exists or does not exist, right?
Well, I'm talking
That
about the people that say they believe, but really deep down they don't.
Well, that's I don't think that's all of Christians out there, but sure, I'm sure those people
It is.
do exist.
It's all of them. Everybody that still
How
sins
do you
is of
know
the devil
that?
because the Bible.
Well, they read
Now
so
that
so.
and that might be something that might be a more fun subject for you, given your situation, your circumstance, your belief, right? Whatever you want to call it, your belief. That might be a better way to show you would be to show you a fake believer versus a real one, and then you see the truth that way. That's possible. I'm dealing with somebody now that is an atheist who thoroughly enjoys watching the verses do their job, who used to not believe in God. Might now. I don't know. I don't know where he's at. I haven't talked to him for a couple of days, but um, been having a lot of fun with the guy doing that. But it's there. There is. I wish I remembered how you worded it, but you said that there was the people who say they believe, but they don't exactly get it. You said I forgot how you worded the difference between the truth and not truth. Is
Well,
what
one's epistemology, one's whether you what your beliefs and knowledge are, and one's ontology, how whether that's metaphysics, whether that got. So I'll put it in terms of a God, right? Epistemology is your belief in the God. You may believe in it, not believe in it. Ontology is whether or not it actually is, in reality is. And the whole thing is, and from my position, I want you to understand my position, Perry. You have these people that you say, are lying and they don't believe, and the Bible shows that you're right and they're wrong. The problem from my perspective is that those other Christians are saying that you're wrong and the Bible proves them right and you wrong. So
but if
from my
it
perspective,
could prove them right, wouldn't
I
somebody have been able to do
believe
that by now?
them over you or you over them. All I'm saying is I think you're both wrong. And I see no reason to believe either of you.
Well, one, if they could have proven me wrong, they would have by now, and nobody ever has. I see Peter talking shit in the chat. He has not either, right? The and nobody's ever going to, because everything that comes out of my mouth does line up with the book. One way, I mean, that's it. That's the whole purpose of me doing what I do, why I spend so much time in it, why I've put so much effort into it, is to make sure that I line up perfectly with it, and I do. And because of that, it just is what it is. If you take a fake believer who says they believe, you take a theist, you guys call them theists. If you take a theist, right, and somebody who says that they believe in Jesus, somebody who goes to church every Sunday, somebody who does the best that they can in their life, and they do all their, whatever it is they do. They're just like us. Again, going back to that, they're just flesh and blood and bone, whatever. You take them and then you measure them up to what the verses say, and then they don't line up. Then you find out that they're not real believers.
Yeah, so the problem with that is they're saying the same about you, and
But
I think missing
right,
this.
but you're missing that they're saying it, but they can't prove it.
Yeah, but they're saying that they can prove it, and their
And then they don't.
interpretation of the Bible does back up what they say. Like
doesn't.
your interpretation of the Bible backs up what you say.
I don't interpret it. I want to say that again. I do not interpret it. For
I
me, it just
understand
means exactly what it says.
But that seems nonsensical to me, because anybody reading a book, there's no way they can just absorb the book without it has to filter through your interpretation. There's no way to draw.
Did you ever read Harry Potter?
No, I don't think so.
What storybooks do you like? Do you have a favorite author?
Lord of the Rings, would that one do?
Lord of the Rings. Okay, so you read Lord of the Rings. So
Sure.
did you need to interpret? Did you need to interpret it, or was the story just the story? You read it and you were done with it.
Interpret it, absolutely.
How? What is there to interpret? It's just a story.
Well, the meaning of Gandalf's sacrifice and sort of rebirth is whether it was right or not that Frodo carried the ring in the first place.
Wait, but you're looking at the stuff that is not written. You're trying to. You're not looking at. When you talk about that, you're looking at the stuff that isn't written in the book. You're just trying to make sense of it yourself. But the story itself is that Gandalf did just
Yeah.
sacrifice himself, right?
Yeah, you're looking at what's written in the book and you're
Yeah.
trying to make sense of it yourself. Yeah,
No,
that's
it just
exactly
means what it says. I don't do the interpret thing.
right. But you do,
No.
because you can't just read the words and go, well, I'm going to take those words at exactly what
Yes,
they
that's
say.
exactly what I do right there. Yep, you nailed it.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that you can say that, but you still have to, because you do realize that words, they don't carry intrinsic meanings and intrinsic values to them. We
Oh,
have to.
So the definition of a word doesn't mean that that's the definition of the word?
So do you? Well, no, but definitions are descriptive. They describe usages of words. They don't prescribe how it should be used. So
you're an
if we,
atheist,
for
you
instance,
shouldn't.
I'll give you an example. If we start using the word gay to refer to sort of homosexual behavior rather than happy as it was originally used, the meaning of that word will change over time to be something else. If we decided to use soap cloth to mean a keyboard, for instance, and we got that word out there and people were going, hey, I was typing on my soap cloth the other day, that would eventually enter the dictionary as a definition, because that's how people are using it. That's how definitions work.
So nothing for you means anything.
Nothing for me means anything. How'd you get that from what I just said?
So let's use the word. Let's since you're an atheist, you shouldn't have a problem doing this. So Jesus says that whoever commits sin is the servant of sin. How do you misinterpret that?
Well, I mean, it could mean a lot of things. It means
Like
you
what?
could be, well, it means you could be a servant of the devil. It could mean that you are a servant of that one sin. It could mean that if you keep sinning, you will become a servant. And the other problem is that I don't think
he
that's
said
how.
whoever commits sin is.
I don't think that's how it was written in the original
It is.
Greek, if it was Jesus.
It is.
Well, the problem is that things lose meaning in translation, and a lot of
that hasn't. It means what it says, man.
I mean, you can say that you draw directly upon it, but obviously you have an interpretation that differs from other people's. And I've just given you 3 different interpretations that you could draw from that text,
But
especially when the language
you can't,
is poetic.
because it just means what it says. Whoever said
I understand that you think that you have the only interpretation of that.
Well, no, it just means what it says. I'm not interpreting it.
Well, the fact of the matter is that other people have other interpretations showing that you're demonstrably wrong. Now, I don't subscribe to any of those interpretations. I don't particularly care what the Bible says, to be perfectly honest.
I know that. That's why I'm happy using it with you.
But the whole point is that anybody reading one text can take a number of interpretations of what it says. And that's true for any book, not just the Bible.
And I'll agree to that. I will agree to that. But now if you take those people and you group them all together and none of them can see anything for what it really just is, I mean, would you really want to spend time with those people?
Well, and they could say the same about you, Perry, that you don't see for what it just is. So it sort of comes to a point where you've got 2 sets of people claiming different things about the same text, and I don't necessarily believe any of them, or that the text is correct to begin with. So why would I believe any of them or the text?
Well, you've already made it pretty clear that you're never gonna. You've chosen to hate God till you die, and that's you.
I never said I was never going to. I'm perfectly open to evidence for God, but it's got to be evidence.
Because even if I'm showing you evidence, you reject it.
Well, that's
Sodom and Gomorrah. Look it up. Pull it up on the screen.
Okay. And I guess the other question that I had was, does God want me to know that he exists?
Yes, he would not have died on the cross for you if he didn't want you to know about it.
Okay. And so, because I don't know about it, does that mean God has failed to show me?
Well, you do know about it. You do know about it. We've met how many times now? You have a heathen how far from you? I mean, even the Quran preaches Jesus, man. You could go to anywhere and it's always going to be in front of your face. It always has been. So obviously he wants you to know about it. Just like Peter, I thought it was ironic that 10-hour stream we did on Amy's. He was in the middle of, he's literally hand making an altar for a heathen building while he's denying God, and just the level of irony in that was hilarious.
Well, I mean, found cities. I can't see anything about digging up salt cities. They found Tall E Haman, a bronze city in the Jordan Valley.
No,
but that's
you.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll put the link to the video when I find it.
It kind of really damages your credibility when you sort of, well, when you sort of go, I know what you think and what you believe and what you know that you know God exists. It really harms your credibility in my eyes.
Yeah.
Because I know you're wrong. Because
But you can't prove that God doesn't exist.
I didn't say that. You're telling me what I know, not what. So here you're confusing epistemology with ontology again.
I'm not using those words. You are. I don't use those words.
Yeah. But I'm explaining to you how they're used. So when I say, when you say you know God exists, you're talking about epistemology. You're talking about beliefs and knowledge, not the actuality, truth of the thing.
Well, I am talking about the actuality, the truth in it. I am very much so. Not to argue with you, because I really don't. That's not what I'm up here for. But to simply say that, going by the text, what I see in people compared to the Bible, all of it, I know for a fact God's real. For a fact,
so
1000%.
Do you think I know what I know? So do you think you know what I know better than I do?
No, you know what you know, but I know what I know.
Yeah. So, well, to me, from my perspective, Perry, the reason why it damages your credibility is because I know what I know better than you do, and you just said
you know has no answers.
What I know has no answers. It depends on the question.
Origin of life.
Well, as I said, our best guess is best hypothesis is abiogenesis. I mean, we worked out.
Came from God.
Well, you can say that, but sort of you lack credibility when you say I know it too when I don't, because what it shows to me is that you're making a claim that I can easily refute because I am me, and I know that's not the case. So
I think deep down you do. Let me, and I want to ask a question, and I like this. This is
but what I'm getting at, Perry, what
name in vain?
Sorry.
Do you ever take his name in vain?
Whose?
Jesus. Do you ever say Jesus Christ or God damn it?
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. Whatever.
So every time you do, you prove he's real.
How so?
Because if he's not real, you should never need to use his name again.
That's just a ridiculous argument. I'm really sorry, Perry, but the fact that a word exists, I mean, I could take. I've said Bigfoot before. It doesn't mean that Bigfoot's real. The fact that a word exists doesn't mean that the concept behind it is real.
Right, but as an experiment for you, right? If God doesn't exist, like you think, like you choose to believe he doesn't exist. So if God doesn't exist, like you choose to believe, then you should have no problem not using his name anymore.
Well, I rarely use his name anyway. It really doesn't come up. I mean, how would it come up? I have
stub your toe and say, "God damn it."
Yeah, possibly. But that's more because of the social and cultural way that I was raised and the nature of language for you to use certain phrases. That's got nothing to do with whether the concept's real. Like I said, I've used Bigfoot before as well. That doesn't make Bigfoot. I just mentioned aliens. It doesn't mean that aliens are real. What I want to get back to is sort of looking at things from my perspective. Okay, so I want you to sort of have a hypothetical in your mind that if you were me, right, and you just for a second say, I didn't actually know God exists, right? I didn't know that. So Just imagine that. If I told you, or if I told me, or someone told me, no, you do you understand why that would drop credibility in
No,
someone that doesn't actually know?
no. If anything, I think it reinforces credibility because I still will tell you, I think you know full well God exists. You just choose not to believe in him. And you find
Yeah,
every outlet you can to try and prove it wrong.
see, that drops your credibility because I know that's not true. So, I mean, you can keep telling yourself that, and you can believe that if you want. You can go ahead and believe that. But from my perspective, it means that the first thing that happens to me is I say, well, you don't have a clue what I think because you've got that so completely wrong, which is
But
why we sort of butt heads.
I
Like,
watch you a
let me
lot of times. What is that on my fucking forehead?
let me use an example. Like, just say I said, you know, aliens exist, Perry, right? You know it, right? And just, do you believe that aliens exist for real?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's something a bit, well, you know that atheists are right and there is no God, Perry.
Well, that's absolutely asinine.
Right. And that's the way I feel when you say the same thing to me in
What the
reverse.
difference is between the two is I
Right.
watch you hour after hour after hour trying to how do I word this? Trying to disprove the existence of God. Spending all your time talking about how he doesn't exist. You put in so much effort against him. Why? Why do you do
Well,
that?
yeah, there's a reason for that, and it's got nothing to do with a god. It's got to do with, well, for a start, the way that religious institutions impact on my life. I'll give you a bit of background that for instance, my wife, she was really sort of traumatized by a church experience, and she has a lot less patience for religious people than I do. Let me give you the tip right now. Um, a lot of these people, my fellow atheists, do feel hurt by religious organizations and are angry about the way that they were treated. And it's important to me that they get support and companionship and community to support them. The second reason is that there's a lot of legal processes over here where Christians, including the last Prime Minister of Australia, that sort of tried to make Australia not a secular country. And I have a problem with that. I have a big problem with that. Religion should not have an impact on the state. It absolutely should not. Um, if people just believed what they wanted to believe, that's fine. The, the,
They
the
do that.
problem is, yeah, no, if they just, and the important word there is just, but the problem is that they try to tell other people how to live and what to think and what they know based upon their own beliefs. And that's where I have a problem. And that's where you and I have a problem, Perry, because you start telling me what I know and what I think based upon your beliefs, we're going to have a problem
Well,
because that's your religious belief.
I can find sympathy in the sympathy, not sympathy for you, but towards the situation of people feeling violated by these religious institutions because religious institutions, you already know, I call them all heathen buildings because that's what they are. They're buildings filled with people who still sin, that tell you how you can't do this, you can't do that, blah, blah, and then they do some of the most horrendous shit to you themselves. They're hypocrites. And I'm all like, I understand that fully, fully. It was because of the hypocrisy of the religious institutions that I sat down and actually just read the Bible. I put everything away. I stopped listening to people. I stopped listening to religious institutions and YouTube videos and just sat down and got to know the book, just the book. And if you go just by the book, every every one of these people in a religious institution are all going to hell. And that's because the Bible says that whoever sins is the servant of sin. The Bible does offer the way out of that. He does offer you perfection without law, the righteousness of God being manifested without the law. It's like Romans 3:20 or something, right? Or the righteousness of God without the law is now being manifest and witnessed by the prophets. And I forgot the last word, but there is a truth in the Bible. There is truth. The book is the truth. hands down. The book is the truth. The people handling it are the problem, not the book. So
Yeah,
your beef with the religious institutions shouldn't be with God. It should be with the religious institutions that you went to.
well, it's not just the religious institutions. I mean, that the people coming in and telling me I should believe in God or I ought to believe in God aren't from religious institutions generally. And I mean, you're not from a religious institution.
Correct.
You've already said multiple times this conversation that
Well, I
that
haven't told you
I
you should. I haven't told you you should. Just
told you that I know things that I
I
do
think you
not
do know
know.
he's real.
Yeah, I realize that you believe that, and
Well,
I
you put in a
know.
lot of time going against it, which
Yeah,
is a good
yeah. So
indicator that you believe it.
we
You're
we
just rejecting it.
yeah, and I'll sort of clear that up. We're not going against a God because we don't believe a God exists. To us, there's nothing to go against. What we're doing is we're going against the actions of religious people, not a God, because we don't see anything that God is actually doing. What we see, what we experience in our lives, is a whole bunch of religious people, and not just Christianity. Islam and
Well,
Hindu. No, let me finish. A whole bunch of them all saying roughly the same thing, telling us what we should believe, and in some cases, telling us what we know when we do not know that to be true and do not believe that to be true. And so there seems to be a dearth, a deficit of respect given to us when we don't believe something. When you come along and say, hey, you know this. No, Perry, you're just
even you said in
wrong.
your teens you had to make the choice. You made the
In
choice.
my what, son?
In your teens, you said that at some point you had thought that God might have been
No,
the
I
universe, but you chose to reject that.
was kind of convinced slowly that perhaps the universe was God, but sort of thinking back on it, I think that the universe already has a name. There's no reason to sort of put the name God on it. Really, I was just using the term to describe something that already has a name, and sort of the idea that it's a consciousness in some way. I don't think I was at that point yet. So these terms, and this is sort of getting to definitions again, these terms are very fuzzy, what we mean by them. Sort of what somebody might say is atheist and what somebody may say, is agnostic. It's very, very fuzzy, Perry.
And now
So
you also did say that that your beef isn't with God, it's with the religious institutions. If that was the case, then why is it God's word that you guys are always mocking on Amy's channel? Why is it
why
not
is it?
why are you
It's
not
God.
mocking the religious institutions? Why are you mocking his word instead?
I
If your
don't
beef
think it is
is with
God's word. I think it's man's word. I think a bunch of humans wrote this down, not a God. I mean, if a God wrote this down, there would be better things in the Bible than what it has in there, including especially the Old Testament. I mean, what kind of God would write a holy book, right? And basically have in it what the priest should wear and the trim and the composition of their clothing, and leave out something like, I don't know, penicillin that would save billions of lives over the ages, just simple antibacterial penicillin kind of thing. It's even a recipe for soap. Soap's probably saved more lives in the history of humanity than anything else at all. Why would a God care about sort of robes and not give a recipe for soap?
because life doesn't matter.
Well, I don't believe that's true. I think life does
It is true.
matter.
It doesn't. You can't add one day to your life.
I can't. Well, sure, I can. I can
You
eat
can.
healthier. I
Yeah, think
don't
about it
see
really
where.
long and hard. You can't add a single day to your life.
Well, I mean, I think you're just using definitional stuff now, that my life ends when it ends. Sure, but if I see doctors and I take care of my body, so Perry, would you agree that if I overate and started smoking cigarettes and sort of ate copious amounts of blood and shot up heroin and lived on the street, my life would be shorter?
No, I won't agree to that.
You won't agree to that. So
No.
you think I will live just as long if I smoke, do heroin, live on the street, have no hygiene whatsoever, you think I will live exactly the same time as if I do clean living, no alcohol, no smoking, take care of my body, the exact same time?
Yeah, because when it's your time, it's your time.
So do you think that
You could
medicine
die in a
has...
car accident the next time you get into a car.
So do you think, well, yeah, that's true, but we're sort of talking about lifespan, not unexpected events ending your life.
How many
I mean,
non-smokers get lung disease every year or lung cancer?
tons of them.
Tons of them. People who never
Yeah.
smoked a day in their life, they still get lung cancer. People
Oh, sure,
who
but
run
I
every
think
day, they still have heart attacks.
I
It doesn't
think the
matter.
problem is here, Perry, that we have statistics that sort of show that there's a correlation between smoking and heart disease, say, or drinking alcohol and liver disease. Those things are caused, and yeah, people who don't smoke and don't drink can still get those things, but not
Yep.
nearly at the rate that people that drink and smoke
Maybe.
do.
But somebody who drinks and smokes and gets lung cancer and cirrhosis of the liver, that person can still live to the 80, 90 years old.
Sure, but we're talking about individuals here and not sort of causes within a population. Do you think medicine helps extend the life expectancy of humans?
Yeah, oh yeah, my daughter's got a heart transplant. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so do you think so in some way medicine has to have an effect to help people live longer? And we see that in the statistics of life expectancy. I mean, people used to only live to like 70, 80 if they were incredibly lucky. Now we're up to 100 and whatever, right? That life expectancy has got
120
high.
is usually the cutoff. A couple people made it a little bit past, but there is a cutoff, and that too is also in the Bible.
Yeah, so what we're talking about is sort of the risks of these things happening, that not everybody that smokes is going to get lung cancer or heart disease. But if you do, the chances of you doing that, because it is a carcinogenic and it causes buildup of fatty tissue in your heart,
It
it's going to
doesn't
be a...
make you matter anymore, man. You don't matter.
What do you mean?
We don't matter. Life does not matter.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I don't know where you're getting that
How
from,
long after
because
you're dead before everybody forgets you even existed?
does it matter?
Yeah, it does.
I
To
don't
answer
think
the
it's
question.
relevant. Well, I mean, probably not long, but I don't see that as
So
mattering.
then how do you matter?
Well, it's like saying your car could be crushed tomorrow, kind of thing. Like eventually it's going to fail, right? Your car's not going to be around forever. So why does it matter? It matters now. It matters because it has value right now. Just because there's some point where it may not have value or might end doesn't mean it's worthless.
What value do you think your life has?
Well, I mean, I do help people with technical issues. I help my society however I can, donate to charity, that kind of thing. I do pass along knowledge that I have. I do provide my insight into sort of the public discourse on things. The knowledge that I give about networking systems to people is, maybe passed down, maybe not. But it also has value to me personally because I enjoy certain things. I enjoy having these discussions. I enjoy interacting with my fellow
You enjoy it.
atheists.
That's the key there. You enjoy it. You enjoy it.
Well,
Not that it matters, but that you enjoy it.
that's not the only thing. It matters. My enjoyment does matter to me. Like, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm just being constantly abused and feel like crap, of course. But there are bigger things than just my wants and my pleasures. I don't see that as particularly useful. It doesn't really matter. But it depends how it depends on how you're using matter there, doesn't it? I mean, if you mean matter in the grand scheme of humanity, then yeah, my actions matter. The thoughts that I put across about morality and how we interact and how we treat one another kind of matters. That I vote, yeah, it may not matter a lot, but it does matter.
I don't think so. I disagree.
Well,
I don't think
it's
it
very
anything
nice. I find that nihilistic, that you don't think that anything matters.
Well,
Is
I know
that
it
because
doesn't.
of?
Daniel 4:35 says, "All the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing."
I don't believe that book, and I think that's terrible
I know you don't. I
advice.
know you don't. I know you don't. But it's the
So,
truth.
yeah, and I guess that's my problem with that sort of very nihilistic, well, heavens are waiting, so this world doesn't matter kind of viewpoint. It's very fatalist, and I don't see it as being particularly useful. We don't we're in this world together, and it sort of is like, well, we should just give up on the reality that we see around us for some unknown thing. And let me give you an example of what atheists see. Just imagine a room. I call it a shrouded room, right? Just imagine there's a room and a door, and nobody knows what's beyond the door. A bunch of people standing around. Nobody knows what's past the door. There's no way to check. There's no way to open it, and the only way you're going to find out is when you walk through. You have one person saying that there's a giraffe behind the door. Another person saying, "Hey, there's a rhino behind the door." Another person saying there's a horse behind the door. To the atheists, we look at that and go, well, we don't know what's beyond the door. Nobody's come back and told us, so we don't believe any of you. We're not claiming that there's something behind there. We just don't know why these people think there is. And when asked, they seem to be pointing to, say, a book that says so, or this that says this. So there seems to be no way we can examine what is actually
I
beyond
sent you
that.
the thing for Sodom and Gomorrah.
Okay. Yeah, so we're basically saying, well, we don't know what's behind the door, but we have no reason to believe any of you.
Well, you wouldn't, even if I gave you the reasons. You would just reject those too.
Yeah, this is a YouTube video. Yeah, I can't watch a YouTube video right now, but I'll just sort of skip to where it's running. Yeah, I mean, they've found a lot of ruined cities, and I know a lot of claims have been made that these ruined cities are Sodom and Gomorrah, but that's not
No, they're solid
necessarily
ash. They're solid ash. It's not like a
sure.
normal ruined city. It's not like Ptolemy. It's not like any of that. This is just solid ash with chunks of sulfur embedded into it.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that there hasn't been volcanic eruptions in the area. It's just, I think that the jury's out on whether these are Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right. So I mean, even seeing it, even if you could see it and touch it, you would still reject it. You just
I don't think so.
hate God.
I don't think
it is what it is.
Well, the problem that I have with
there's no volcano by it, Megan. There's no volcano within 100 miles. That's what makes Sodom and Gomorrah so unique.
Okay, the problem that I have with this whole idea is that, as you said, God wants me to believe, but the evidence that is sort of brought up is kind of really weak. Like, a YouTube video with sort of claims of Sodom and Gomorrah when it's not really established that they're true.
Well, you can go there.
Well, I mean, I can't go to the Middle East right now, but I can certainly put it on my calendar. I kind of generally tend to trust archaeologists that sort of are trained in finding out, places and what they were and how they were sort of came about to be ruined, because they have the speciality in dealing with those things. I don't just believe it offhand because somebody says it's true. And that's because of the scientific method. But what I'm getting at is that sort of a God that wants me to believe, but fails to do so. And I know that. Sorry?
He hasn't failed. You're failing, not him.
Well, this is the thing, Perry. Whether or not I've caused him to fail or not, he's still failed.
He's not failed at all.
Well, I don't believe that a God exists, and you said that God wants me to believe.
That's because you choose to. You choose to reject him.
Well, it's regardless,
it's not that he failed. You failed.
Well, even if I did choose to, and I'm not saying that's the case, I don't think I chose anything. He's still failed. Do I have the power to defy God?
How did he fail? You're still here. You're still breathing. You got a wife who's still breathing. Right. That doesn't mean he failed. That doesn't mean he failed. That just means you reject him.
Okay, so does God want me to fail, to believe in God?
He died for you. I mean, it's pretty kind of it's kind of serious.
Well,
But that
that's
doesn't
not
mean that
the
it's up to him to make you believe it. It's up to you to choose to. You choose
well,
it.
if he wants to do it, right? He wants me to believe, and I don't believe. How did he succeed?
Well, he succeeded by doing what he did on the cross. He did all the
But
work for you. All the proof is there. You can find it. You
but
just choose to reject him. So it's not his failure, it's yours.
I don't believe in him, so therefore he has failed in what he wants.
No.
So if, and I'll sort of refer to an example that Leo uses for this particular line of reasoning. Leo basically says, well, if I go to the store to get something and somebody T-bones me, it's not my fault, right? I have failed to get to the store. So I'm not saying it's God's fault, but he still has failed to
No.
convince me that it exists.
No. It's not his job to
Why not?
convince you. It's your job to choose to believe it or not.
But he still failed.
Nope.
Well,
No.
then
And honestly, he really didn't, because the number of people that are set in stone to be what it's supposed to be, that number is already set in stone. It's only 144,000. So I don't ever expect, I never ever coming on here, I never ever expected to ever be able to sway you in any way, shape, or form. That's actually not my goal for coming up here. My goal for coming up here was just to show that you do have the evidences of it in you, the knowledge of good and evil, that morality, that law written on your heart. You made the choice to consciously reject him, and you do so every day. And every time you speak out against him, it is you have taken an adversarial position, not, and you might say, well, I just don't believe in God. But that's just more, that's further denial, further rejection, further putting yourself in an adversarial position.
yes,
You,
so you claim, but Perry, I just want to make this clear. I'm not like I'm not adversarial to God because I don't see anything to be adversarial to. What I'm adversarial to is the people coming with the claims. That is what I see. I don't have this knowledge of God
and I
to
don't
in
blame you
any
there.
way
I
defy
don't blame
him
you
in
for being adversarial. I'm adversarial to those people too. The ones that say they believe and then they don't line up with the book. I'm adversarial to them too. So,
but I'm not adversarial to a God because I don't think a God exists. I see no way to be adversarial. Like that would
you
be saying, "Hey, you're adversarial to Bigfoot." Well, no, you don't believe
you
Bigfoot.
consciously reject it though. It's a different. It's difference. It's not
No.
that you don't believe. You consciously reject it.
Yeah, see that sort of
And that's
just sort of
every atheist bears that same burden. Every human being walking this earth bears that same burden.
yeah. In my
It is
mind, that just shows that you don't have a grasp of what I think because you're sort of trying to tell me what I know and what I think, and I don't think you have.
I'm not telling you
I
what
know
you think or what you know. I'm telling you what it is. And what it is you reject God.
have been saying what I know. So here's the thing: even if it wasn't God's fault that he failed to convince me, he has still failed to convince me.
You didn't
Whether or
fail
not that's well, yeah, he did because he did not succeed in convincing me.
because you
Right? I
reject
am.
him. It's not
Doesn't
that he
matter.
failed, it's that you reject.
Doesn't matter. He still failed
Oh,
to
that matters.
convince.
That's a big matter.
If
That
I
does
tell
matter.
you, well, if I tell you, like, I've got a Lamborghini or something, and you go, well, you haven't convinced me, kind of thing, and I go, well, I can show you a picture on the internet and stuff like that, and the truth is, I do have a Lamborghini. If I have failed to convince you, I have failed to convince you, regardless of how good my evidence is, and regardless if you've unjustly decided not to believe me. That's irrelevant. The whole point is I have still failed to convince you,
No, that would
regardless.
have been on me if you owned a Lamborghini and you showed me pictures of it, and I chose to reject it to believe that you had one. Then that's
I have
on me.
failed.
That's not on you.
Have I succeeded to convince you?
Whether you have a Lambo or not.
Yeah, in that situation, if I show you pictures and stuff and you still reject it, have I succeeded in convincing you?
Well, it would. I mean, it kind of depends on if you have a Lambo or not.
No, it doesn't. Have I succeeded in convincing you?
Well, on what grounds? This is apples to oranges. It's not. It's not.
No, there's
It,
no grounds.
if
Again,
if I don't believe it, it's because I reject it. It has nothing to do
sure.
with you. It has
If
nothing to do
you've
with you or what you show me. It's that I just would reject it.
if
So
you've
you
rejected it, okay, just say you've rejected it for whatever reason, doesn't matter. You've rejected it.
right.
From what I have done in my actions of claiming that I have a Lambo, showing you the pictures, have I succeeded in convincing you? It's a yes or no question.
It's not up to you to convince me, though. It's up to me
Doesn't
whether
matter.
I believe it or not.
Yeah,
You can show me all the evidence in the world. If I'm not going to believe it, then I'm not going to believe it.
right, and I can say it's not my fault that you weren't convinced, right? It's not my fault. I did everything possible to try and show you. But
Right.
have I succeeded in convincing you?
Well, it's not on you at all.
I feel like dancing around the point, Perry. It's a yes or no question.
But you're trying to convince me, whereas
Sure.
God isn't necessarily trying to convince you.
Okay, that seems weird. That seems almost like a Calvinist position.
Well, it's up to you. It's not up to him. He did all the work already.
Well,
He wasn't. I mean, there's no. He shouldn't have to convince you. You should just, search it out yourself.
okay, I'm really confused because you said that God wished me to be convinced.
He died for all men. Yep, he died for all men.
Okay, so if God has the intention of convincing me that he exists and he wants me to be convinced that he exists, then he has a goal in mind that I am convinced that he exists.
You wake up, you look in the mirror, you're still there. Yep.
And he has not succeeded in convincing me that he exists.
Because you reject him.
Doesn't matter what the reason is. The fact of the matter is that he's failed in something.
Well, you didn't fail. You're just rejecting it. Just like you wouldn't have failed because you had the Lambo. I just rejected it.
Well, the same principle applies to me going in my Lambo to get something from the store and somebody, rear ends me or T-bones me and prevents me from going to the store. I still failed. It wasn't my fault, but I still failed to get to the store. The goal that I had wasn't achieved. Now, that isn't a problem for ordinary people like you and me. It doesn't matter if we fail. But the sort of claim that comes with a God is that he is infallible. Yet, from my perspective, and I know you might not believe this, that he has failed to convince me that he exists. And the better evidence that I think is there is more that God could have done if he wished to convince me. Like Paul on the road to Damascus, for instance. He did appear to Paul. So I know there is more God could have done, yet he did not do. So in a way, he has definitely failed to convince me through his inaction.
Well, you're still breathing. I don't think he's failed anything. I think you just rejected. He still shows you every day.
Well, I don't think that breathing is reliant on God. Can you tell me where the process is that God makes it so we understand breathing pretty well. The lungs extract oxygen and that, gets pumped into the bloodstream and around your body to oxygenate your cells. But where does God come into any of this?
Do you have children?
No.
You should. You should.
No.
Yeah, you should.
Look, honestly, Perry, I'm not a great fan of children.
Honestly, I'm not gonna disagree. I don't know you like that. So, but I would say that that having a child kind of opens your eyes to a different kind of love.
Okay. Well, I guess that we're going on to sort of my personal.
So you're seeking for a sign. You need signs, right? But the problem is, Mark, no matter what I've shown you, no matter what, apparently even whatever the fake believers, no matter what anybody has ever shown you, you've rejected it.
Well, that's not the case because I'm not.
I've seen you do this. I've seen it. Like
Perry, let me finish. I'm not looking for signs. I'm looking for evidence. So evidence is indicative of one conclusion kind of thing. Yeah. It points to one conclusion. It's not a sign. I don't know what a sign specifically is because a lot of people see the same signs and they become fake believers, like you say, or they believe in Islam, or they see signs and believe in Hinduism. They lead to different places. But if I say, hey, I've got evidence for, say, evolution, or evidence that the world is round, it is positive facts reinforcing one conclusion.
Your existence is your evidence.
Well, I don't think that's the case, Perry, because
Right, you reject
my existence, it doesn't seem to rely on a God. My parents had sex and had a baby. And
right, which is biblical. Like, that's what he said. That's how this works.
Well, people knew how babies
so that's
work.
evidence of it.
It's not evidence of a God. It's evidence that I had parents. That's what it's evidence of. Because people take the same thing that you've said, that you're alive, and say, hey, that point.
It doesn't matter what somebody shows you, you're not going to accept it. You just keep rejecting it. It doesn't matter what it is.
If you could provide like evidence, like evolution has evidence, or the
evolution really doesn't know. Show me the missing link. Show me the missing link.
It's called Australopithecus afarensis.
Is that a pig bone? Isn't that pig bone?
No, give me one sec.
The evidence is every time you look in the mirror. The evidence is every breath you take. The evidence is the knowledge of good and evil in you. The evidence is the law written on your heart. The evidence is that we're sitting here talking about it right now.
Yeah, there's nothing written on my heart, Perry.
There is. You have an idea of right and wrong according to your own morality, which is the law written on your heart.
Yeah, that's not based upon any law written on my heart. Nothing's written.
You don't think so, but it is.
Blood around my body. It doesn't do anything as far as morality is concerned. That sort of comes from.
That's why you feel guilty when you think you do something wrong, because you broke that law written on your heart.
No, that's simple. That's simple emotions, empathy, and reciprocity. We went over this before, that all social mammals use those things to.
And all social mammals are created by God.
The original skeleton as well. That's the recreated one.
Recreated. Okay, so that's obviously out.
Why is that?
Why does it need to be recreated?
Well, parts are missing, but we've found like hundreds of these things. It's not just
a monkey.
Sorry?
It's a monkey.
It walks upright.
So do monkeys.
No, their hips aren't built that way, Perry. I don't know if you know much about primate biology, but their hips aren't directly above, like their pelvis isn't directly above their legs.
And I'm looking at this, and it's showing very few actual real bones. So all the stuff that they made up and added to it, you don't even know if that's accurate. Where's...
Yeah, I'm getting the original. Give me one sec. But I mean, this is sort of off the point of, so when you say where's evidence, this is the kind of stuff we can point to. These have been analyzed. And look, the whole idea of the missing link, we have found so many Australopithecus. Well, we found sort of Cro-Magnon men, we found Homo habilis, we found Homo erectus, we found so many primitive hominids. That there's so many of them that
But there's no missing link.
What do you mean? I'm sorry. I must have a
link that shows that evolution exists. There isn't one, and that's because that everything is created after its own kind, like the Bible says.
Well, I don't really want to get onto evolution. This is more talking about what we believe. I mean, I'm happy to talk evolution sometime, but
cats. A dog can't have sex with a cat and make kittens, right? If evolution was a thing, that should be possible, but it's not.
No, that's not possible under evolution. So once things speciate and there has been
okay. So you just said that's not possible. So what came first, the chicken or the egg?
The egg.
How?
Well, because like avians have evolved from very primitive reptilians. So
So
in order
what
for
you just said isn't possible. Cats having sex with dogs, right? You're trying to say is possible to make the
yeah,
egg.
Harry, honestly, mate, you don't understand evolution at all. I'm really sorry, mate, but that entire idea isn't what evolution says. Evolution says that everything had a common ancestor. It doesn't say that everything should be able to breed now. We know once speciation occurs that things can't breed anymore. Like, for instance, take and before that, they will generally give birth to sterile animals, like horses and donkeys, for instance. They'll create a mule, which is always sterile because their genetic lineages have diverged, but not diverged enough so they can't breed. But their offspring will be sterile because they are too genetically dissimilar to create fecund, sort of
Right.
fertile.
Just like a reptile can't make a chicken.
I don't even know what you mean by that.
Well, you said chickens came from reptiles.
Primitive, very, very
Right.
primitive.
It doesn't exist. That can't happen, according to you just now.
Well, I mean, I can show you a
Right.
sort of
You can't answer the question is what came first, the chicken or the egg? You can't answer that by your own logic. That doesn't work. Something
no,
had to
the egg. You said that the egg.
the egg. How without the chicken?
Yeah. Because they sort of so at one point, a an early dinosaur would have produced an egg that had changes, and slowly over time, there would be something that changed into an
Oh
ave
man,
bird.
that does not make any sense whatsoever. Because it's not possible. If that was the case, chickens would have changed by now, wouldn't you think?
What do you
That
mean by
chicken
that?
make a frog?
Yeah, so chickens, the reason why they don't change and why they're likely not to is because they don't operate in nature anymore. We decide what they turn into. We breed traits into them.
It's
So
because they're created after their kind,
let me
like the
finish.
Bible.
The original chickens were actually sort of jungle chickens. They were wild chickens, and we kind of um, caught them, domesticated them, and then bred them for the traits that we wanted, not necessarily sort of they'll evolve into something. Now,
Well,
just
we
put
pump them full of steroids. If you throw them back in the wild, they're still going to be chickens.
sure, but they will change depending on the requirements of their environment. They will change. Now, how much they'll change, and don't forget, it takes an incredibly slow amount of time. Now, this is Archaeopteryx, and I might put it on the screen for everyone to see. My apologies, people. I'm still getting the hang of this.
Bird.
Yeah.
So it's a extinct bird.
Yeah, it actually has way more. See the claws coming out from the wings there?
Yep.
It's got claws. It's also got teeth in the mouth. It's got teeth.
Right.
This tail, this long tail the bones go all the way down to the bottom. No modern bird has that tail.
So
Just
because
doesn't.
it's got teeth in its mouth,
Uh-huh.
and so because it's got teeth in its mouth, I can say that piranhas came from that too.
Well, the piranhas have wings and feathers.
No, but I mean reptilian, right? So fish is not a far stretch. Or maybe the bird came from a piranha.
Well, I don't think that's the way that science works, Perry. We kind of
That's the way
look
it
at.
is. That's the way it sounds. It's the same
Well,
exact thing.
I
It's
mean,
just
I can't help if you don't understand it. I think this is sort of getting way off topic to the original thing.
what came first, the chicken or the egg? And you can't have an egg without a chicken. You can't have
Yeah,
a chicken
an egg
without a chicken coming from an egg.
yeah, but sort of an egg can come from a more primitive animal going all the way back to reptilians, and so that's how
I'm
it
not
came.
duped, Megan. I'm not duped, not even close. I'm just a firm believer in the book, and whoever sins is of the devil. And
Yeah, so
sin
I don't
is
believe in
doing
the book,
wrong.
and to
Right.
me, Harry, it seems like you don't have any credibility because you keep saying things that I don't know are true. You keep saying that I
Right.
chose something that I
Well,
didn't choose.
just
So
because
to me,
you choose
just
not to
look.
believe it doesn't mean it's not real.
Well, that's true, but to me, I have to base what I believe on facts and evidence. And unfortunately, Perry, that you're not doing much to sort of convince me because you keep saying things that, to my mind, are demonstrably wrong.
But here, Mark, this is where it comes from. You've talked to how many other professed believers before me? How many?
Oh,
100?
tons. Oh,
Hundreds, right?
probably more
And
than
they've
that.
all shown you everything they can, and
Uh-huh.
you've rejected all of it.
Yeah.
So what I show you is not going to make a difference. I already know that, and I'm not here to really do that. I did exactly what I came here to do: is show you that law written on your heart that every time you break it, that is
Mhm.
the evidence of God. You
Well,
existing is the evidence of God. You yourself existing is evidence of God. You just reject it, no matter what anybody shows you. It doesn't matter. You just reject it. You reject Him. You got beef with God for
so
whatever
that's
reason.
why you've got no credibility, Perry, because you're saying things that are not true. The fact is that I will accept a certain level of evidence. That the problem is that your level of evidence for your own beliefs are really low. You'll accept the book at its word, and that's fine. I don't care if you do. But your level for every other person's religion is way up here. They've all got books. It's massive.
Right.
So
I
you
preach from the
don't
Quran
believe,
too.
and also the evidence that you require for evolution, even though we can provide mountains of evidence for it, is way up here. And it's a cognitive sort of bias that you have towards your own religion. And I understand this because I see it in every single one of these people that have come up to talk to me, because they all believe different things and all believe that I should believe the particular thing that they believe in.
I
Now,
don't.
it's no accident that science has provided us the best methodology, the best way to go about what we should believe and shouldn't believe. The reason why I know this is because it gets results. We are talking right now because somebody applied the scientific methodology to computers and data communication. That's
Mhm.
why we're talking right now.
And
And so
God
that
created those people.
well, that seems to be the best way we can determine what is real and what isn't. And so, if you have a better way than scientific methodology, I would love to hear it, because it seems to me that all you seem to be doing is saying, hey, I know the truth. I can't demonstrate it. I can't
I
provide
have
good evidence
demonstrated it.
for it. A book says a thing and you are alive. The problem is there's millions of people who reach different conclusions. Now, they can't all be right, but they can all be wrong. And so I don't believe any of you, because you aren't providing any reasonable evidence
I
that
did.
would a rational person would believe in these things.
I did. Okay.
No, you
So
did.
I'm not here, but I told you I'm not here to convince you to believe. My thing is I'm just showing you that you have consciously rejected God. That's it. And I've shown that. And I have demonstrated that you have every characteristic the Bible describes of an ungodly heathen. All of it. All of it. And so for every wrong that you've ever done, at the end of it, Mark, you're gonna pay for it. Period.
Yeah,
You're gonna pay for it.
I don't believe that. I don't think
Right. I know.
there's
You've
any
rejected.
reason to believe what you're saying is true. But here's the thing, Perry. You haven't actually proven anything. You've just made claims. I think you sort of think that you claim something
You
and you
haven't
believe
proven anything either.
it, or well, I mean, I don't know what I would be setting out to prove. I mean,
Well,
I've demonstrated logically that a God has failed to convince me. If you don't believe that,
he
well,
didn't fail. You just reject him.
which means that he failed in
No.
convincing me.
No,
It,
no, it
very,
just means that you reject God. That's it.
yeah,
That's
so
all that means.
I don't think you can sort of. I think that
I know
you're
you
just
don't want to word it that way because that's what it is, but it is what it is.
well.
You
I mean,
reject God.
of not really logical. So if I'm not convinced and somebody has the intent to convince me, they have failed to convince me. No
I didn't
matter
come up here
what.
with the intent to convince you.
The God, well, I'm talking about your God and all the stuff that he's presented, because it seems like we can present very strong evidence that's rigorous and sort of robust and has replication. We can do it again and again and again and get the same result. The problem is that your God, I mean, how would you do an experiment to falsify your God?
You can't.
Well, that's a problem, because that's how science works.
Well, science has never been able to falsify God.
Sure, and so it's like,
so is science wrong or is God wrong?
well, an unfalsifiable hypothesis or an untestable statement isn't really even worth considering. Like, I could say, there's a teapot around Jupiter. How are you falsifying that? Well, there's no way to show there's no teapot around Jupiter. We don't have, no telescope's going to see it. You can't go there. You can't falsify that claim. But that's
Well,
not
according to science, we could falsify that.
No, not at the moment.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
you and I
what that
sitting here discussing it.
new thing did. They just put out a new picture of so-called Jupiter and the moons around it. There's no teapot.
Yeah, it's not going to pick up a teapot, mate. That's too small.
I see what you're saying. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So the point is that you're making a claim. You're saying, hey, this God exists. And you're making the claim that I know it, which I know is not true. So there's sort of problems there, which I've already discussed. But
denial is not the same.
Well, look, whatever you want to call it, you're making a claim that I know, and I know that to be wrong. So, moving on. You're making a claim that a God exists, but saying, hey, there is no way to show that it's wrong, so it must be right. And what I'm saying is that that's a terrible way to evaluate reality, because tons of people can make claims that you can't falsify, like the teapot.
Can I ask a question?
Hey,
what makes that a terrible way to? What makes it a terrible way to see reality versus your way to see reality?
Yeah, so there's a million claims that someone could make that are unfalsifiable. I could claim that if you give me $1 million, in 500 years, your descendants are going to win the lottery. There's no way you can falsify that. There's no way you can show that that's not true.
But in 500 years, if it happened, then what?
But how do you falsify it?
Well, I don't, but that's why the Bible's thousands of years old.
It's
and all the stuff in it keeps coming true.
I'm just talking generally. I could say that, hey, if you devote your life to the rainbow unicorn god, then you're going to get presents rain down after you die, and go to Zip Zap, the heaven of unicorns. There's a million billion claims. No, wait, Perry. There's
covered 1,900 prophecies that have come true.
There's a million billion claims that can be made that are not falsifiable. There's no way of you saying, hey, I can tell that's wrong because of X. Because if it's put in a sphere where you can't touch, you can't falsify it. So that's why it's a terrible way, because if you are going to be intellectually consistent with all claims made, if you can't falsify something and you have to believe it, then you would have to believe every claim made to you on the basis that you can't falsify it. On the flip side, what we do with science is say, hey, we put forward a hypothesis and try to prove it wrong. If we can't prove it's wrong, it's tentatively accepted as sort of reality. So, for instance, evolution, we try to prove it wrong. And all this evidence mounts up in us trying to prove that it's wrong, that shows how valid it is. And so we say, hey, that's a valid model.
But you haven't proven the Bible wrong.
Well, that wasn't the point.
And evolution has been proven wrong. Darwin himself took it back on his deathbed. I don't know if you know that or not. You should look into that. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. No, he didn't. I think they baptized him after.
The words he used were, I can't believe they fell for it.
No, that's 100% true, Perry. No, that's not true.
Hey, let me find it. I'm going to find the direct from where Darwin said, I can't
He
believe
said,
they-"
"How I wish I had not expressed my theory of evolution as I have done." Right? So he wanted to say, I wish I had expressed it in a different way that wasn't so controversial.
Right, he took it back. He wished he hadn't have done it.
That's not taking it back, mate. That's
He did.
basically
He regretted it.
he didn't. He so didn't.
I'm not going to spend all day looking for this. It's
It's
there.
okay.
I know he did. I know there was a point where he did say, "I can't believe they fell for it." There's a couple scientists that have actually gone through and done that. But at
Yeah,
the end of the day, at
right.
the end of the day, I didn't come up here to convince you, Mark. I came up here to have a conversation, and the conversation where I wanted to go with it, I've gone and done. It's done. You have the knowledge of good and evil. You do choose to reject God. You absolutely choose it. No matter how much evidence I show you, when you go and you watch that Sodom and Gomorrah thing, you can't deny it. I mean, it's there. There's over 1900 fulfilled prophecies in the Bible that were written before it happened and then it did. No other book on the face of this earth does that. No other book on the face of this earth can do that. No other book ever will. And the
Yeah,
verse is there. It means what it says.
like that Jesus will ride through the gates of Jerusalem on a donkey, and it's sort of very, very loose, could be applied to everybody prophecy. And there's others that didn't come true, like the sacking of the city of Tyre, that said that Nebuchadnezzar would sack the city or sorry, Nebuchadnezzar would have this be in power when the city of Babylon was raised, and he wasn't. And then sort of Christian apologists sort of say, oh, well, it was applied to Alexander the Great, who came way later. And it's like, he was talking about the Israelites attacking the city right there and then. So there's a lot of these prophecies.
What are you talking about?
The prophecy made about the city of Tyre.
Tyre, it just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, see, that's the problem with prophecy. You sort of go, well,
Tyre's supposed to be destroyed. Damascus is supposed to be destroyed. There's a few of them that haven't happened yet. Yeah.
The point is that he was talking about the Israelites attacking the city of Tyre right there and then in the thick of it, and said that the walls would be pulled down and destroyed. And
I know what you're talking about. It's in Isaiah. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's not about then. It was about what's coming. Right.
Yeah,
and so
prophecy. These prophecies are very trite. They're sort of meaningless, like Jesus riding on a donkey into
Jerusalem. So 1900 fulfilled prophecies, and you'll still reject it. Exactly.
Well, I haven't seen a prophecy that is credible, and most of the prophecies sort of.
What about Jesus? Do you think he didn't exist?
Well, I'm not a mythicist. I think that probably a Jesus existed, but I see no reason to think he performed any supernatural things.
Wow.
Well, here's a question for you,
wow,
Preacher.
Man. You got this. That's a miserable existence, man. Seriously?
Oh, no. I have a good time. What are you talking about?
Man?
Well, I mean, no, I have a perfectly great time. I mean, you've seen me on Amy's. I have fun. I'm smiling.
You seem. I'm not gonna lie, Mark. Deep down inside, you don't seem like a very happy man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, maybe on the surface, you put up a good front, but
see, this is why you don't seem to have a lot of credibility.
Well, that's my perception. That's my perception. Me saying I think you know God exists and you reject him, that's me making a statement. My perception of you is you're not really a very happy person.
Well, your perception's kind of wrong, Perry. I don't know how else to break it to you. I have a good life. I have a wife who I love and adore. I've got good friends. I have great conversations on the internet. I have nothing to complain about in my life. I'm doing great. But here's a thing that sort of bothers me. A lot of the miracles that Jesus apparently did, like for instance, he cured a leper of leprosy kind of thing, or stuff like this. The problem is that we have cured leprosy now. There's no lepers around anymore. And the reason why is because we have simple antibiotics. So why did Jesus just give us the antibiotics?
Are you sure they cured leprosy or it just died off?
Well, we can't reverse the effects of leprosy on the body.
Right, that's what I'm
But
saying. That's not possible. I just want to clarify that,
right.
make sure we're
But
there.
the,
If somebody gets leprosy and their fingers are rotting off, you cannot stop that from happening.
no. You can. You can stop. You can't stop the damage already done. So if somebody
Right.
loses a finger to leprosy, it's not going
So
to grow
Jesus
back.
healing them and reversing all that, that's nothing to you?
Well, the point is that he would have done a lot better by just giving us antibiotics and destroying leprosy forever.
I don't
Wouldn't
think
you
so.
think?
I think it's way cooler that he restored their hands. I
Yeah,
think
I
it's way
don't.
better than antibiotics could ever do.
Well, really?
Yeah.
So you think that healing one person of leprosy
The
is
way he
better
did
than
it was,
healing everybody in the world and basically
well,
curing leprosy?
in reality, God did create everything. Everything exists. That's what we started this whole conversation on. Everything exists because he spoke and said, let there be. So the antibodies are there because he created them.
But my point is that tons of people have died of leprosy in the meantime, of not
No,
their own.
people die every day, man.
Yeah, so this gets to the whole thing of, does life even matter for you? And
It does.
I guess my perception, you seem particularly unhappy because you're saying life
Oh,
doesn't
I'm happy
even.
as can be, man. I enjoy it in the moment. I live today. Today is today. Tomorrow's
Uh,
tomorrow. Lord willing, I'm here tomorrow. And if I'm not, oh well.
I'll be really honest with you, Perry, because I mean I respect you and your position that you're coming from, but I see a lot of anger coming out of you.
That's
Um,
funny.
well, you certainly have been very vocal and sworn a lot on Amy's stream and lost
So
your
because
temper.
I say the word shit, that means I'm an angry person?
No, I know it's because you're sort of screaming at people that you're an angry person.
No, no. And it's never really screaming. It's all controlled. Everything's controlled. I could have lost my shit on here a whole bunch of times tonight and had fun with it, but I chose to have a decent conversation, right?
Glad you did, but
It's all
you were talking about perceptions of me, so I think it's only fair if I
fair,
talk about perception of you,
right?
and at times it seems like that you don't have control over your anger, that you
I
are
do.
just furious.
It's all
Well,
controlled. Well, I mean, when
I,
people are muting me and blocking me and throwing me off because they don't like the facts, that's different. And I can, just like every other human being. I mean, everybody's got a threshold for bullshit,
sure,
right? So if I hit my threshold, it is what it is. It's still controlled. The response to it is always still controlled. I promise you, if you catch me in one of those moments, I can go from up here to down here, just like that, because being up here is controlled. It is
but
controlled.
But why? If you're absolutely sure you have the right answer and you believe in God and you're
Right.
absolutely right, why are you angry that people are muting you?
I don't get angry. I get authoritative.
You just said it was controlled anger, and it certainly looks
Well, I didn't
like
say
anger.
controlled anger. It's just controlled response. I wouldn't even
I,
call it anger, man.
there's much controlled about it, to be honest with
It
you.
is.
It doesn't
It
seem
is.
like it's under control.
No, it
Yeah,
is. It is very
I
controlled.
think James Wolfe is right. You kind of did lose it at the soundboard, that because Peter's good at winding people up. I'll give him that. He's a great guy. I really like him, but he pranks me all the
He's
time.
funny. Peter's funny. I like him. He's funny, but
Well,
it's
it didn't seem like you found it funny the other night. It did seem like you were very angry at
no.
Peter.
Why would I be angry at Peter? He rejects God. He's like you. I don't. What do I got to be angry for? He's the one that's going to be angry in the end, not me.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think we're going anywhere after we die. I don't see any reason to believe that.
You don't think, but there's what you think, and then there's reality,
Will
right?
my mind exist after I die in some way?
Consciousness. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that work when
And then
mind,
there's that too. Then there's that. Sorry, and I'm not trying to cut you off, but you talk about the evidence of God, consciousness, man. Where did that come from?
well, it's as far as we know, it's an emergent sort of system that comes from neurons, memory, sort of biochemical reactions within our brain. Can you show me any evidence of a mind existing without a brain? Can you show me any evidence of somebody losing their brain and their consciousness
So
surviving?
yourself, man. Nobody's been able to come back and tell us about it, right?
So why should I believe it if no one can come back and tell us about it?
Faith. There's where that comes in. Faith. That
So
choice,
what's the
that
definition of faith?
choice to believe is faith.
Okay,
The
so
choice to reject it is unbelief.
so your definition of faith, and I don't want to misrepresent you. Let me get this 100% straight. You think that faith is the choice to believe, and
In
that's your
something that you can't see, you can't tangibly touch. All I have to go on, and this is fair, and I'm good with this. All I have to go on is these here pages. That's it. This is what I base my entire life on. Every word that is in this book. That's
yeah, I
it.
would agree, yeah.
That's what my whole life is based on. That is faith. It's
So
circular reasoning. There's a whole lot of
yeah, it
what's
is circular.
going on here with people that happens to me all the time, and I'm okay with it because at the end of the day, I know the book's true. It's proven itself to be true time and time and time and time and time again for the thousands of years that it's been around, and its many different before it became canonical scripture. It was individual books. They have been around since time. As far as I know, it's been around since time existed. The Bible says so itself, right? And then there's that circular reasoning part. So blind faith is choosing to believe in it even without being convinced. That's what faith is.
Okay, so why would I don't see faith as particularly reliable to get to the truth. I see people that have a lot of faith in a lot of things. They have faith in their wife who then cheats, or they have faith in certain things. I don't see that as a particularly good pathway to truth, because faith doesn't lead you in a direction. Like, it doesn't, like people who caused 9/11, for instance, or terrorist bombers, they have faith.
Allegedly.
Well, I mean, to blow yourself up, I would imagine you do have faith in what you believe. But
they
I
do.
don't.
I mean, they do. Yep. They have a faith in what they're doing, I'm sure. Yeah.
So how is faith a good way to get you at what's true? What's the methodology that you can use?
For me, is to just make sure that I accept the book for what it says. I don't interpret it. It just means exactly what it says. And I go by that. That's it.
I guess my problem is that stuff like circular reasoning and faith, I could believe in literally anything if those two criteria are the only ones that had to be met. I could believe that I am the demigod of the world if I take it on faith and circular reasoning.
But you'd have to have something to substantiate that claim.
Well, sure. If you're using just faith and circular reasoning to substantiate it, you could absolutely do that.
No. The faith and the circular reasoning have to have something to substantiate that. Like a Muslim who blows himself up goes based on Muhammad saying he'd have 72 virgins in the end, right? So my faith and circular reasoning is based on the book in full, in its entirety. I don't leave anything out. No verses. I don't leave out a single verse. Jesus meant what he said in everything. The entire book means exactly what it says.
So I could just circle back to sort of, say, Norse Germanic religious traditions and say that there were demigods walking the earth. If demigods walk the earth, I walk the earth, therefore I am a demigod. You can circular reason these things together.
But then every time you do something wrong, you're still proving that the Bible's right. And then you're going to have to answer for that at the end.
You're in the same loop, Perry. You're basically saying, well, the Bible's right because we're here, and therefore the Bible's right. It's circular reasoning as well. So
it's more than that. I mean, there is 1900 fulfilled prophecies. There is Jesus. There is Sodom and Gomorrah. There is the Red Sea crossing. There is all the stuff that they found in Israel, the biblical archaeologists that have uncovered everything to prove that the stories in this book really happened. And the books themselves were written before the stories happened. So, I mean, there is a lot that goes into this, but it doesn't matter what I show you, you still reject it.
Well, actually, archaeologists have sort of said that the Red Sea crossing, and actually the Israelites were never slaves in Egypt, is what archaeologists uncovered. So
yeah, there were
problems with the archaeological evidence.
But how can they say that when even written on the walls in Egypt, they talk about it.
No, it's not. They lived in Egypt, but they were never slaves. That's the problem. They occupied a large, and I mean, I'd love to talk to Dr. Josh about it, but a lot of the Old Testament Exodus just didn't happen. There was no record of battles. The Egyptians didn't record Israelites as being slaves. They just have not found anything that they would expect to find with the Israelites being slaves. So a lot of these stories, they don't seem to match up with what we know. And like, for instance, the census.
Then we have two different perceptions, because everything that I know, biblical, Bible archaeology, whatever, everything that I know from it, it lines up perfect. And I know that, like, so pharaohs, and I disagree with that, because I could probably find where it does, but pharaohs used to, like, when a new pharaoh would come in, so they would write on the walls. If they went to battle, no matter what pharaoh it was, would always write that they won, even if they lost, right? Because they didn't want people to perceive them as being weak. So one pharaoh would change what another one had written to make himself look better. So even if it doesn't say on the walls that the Jews were slaves, a lot of that would probably be because the pharaoh, after whoever it was that died in the Red Sea, didn't want to be embarrassed by the fact that God schooled him.
We take into account that history is generally written by the winners. I don't think that archaeologists are unaware of that. They do take that into account. But it's like the Roman census in the New Testament, for instance, that Jesus went back to his place of birth. Now, the Romans didn't conduct censuses like that, and that it invalidates the whole point of a census. The whole point of the Romans doing a census was to find out how many people were living at the time in each area. If you're sending people back to the place of their birth, it invalidates the whole thing. It makes zero sense. So there's these things in the Bible which, it sounds like you're a biblical literalist, but it's a very difficult position to take with some of the things in there. And I'm obviously not a biblical literist. I think that a lot of the stuff that got in there was due to the Council of Trent and leaving out certain manuscripts and certain stories. And so I think there is some truthful things in there. There are some places and people and what they did were truthful, but that doesn't mean I believe the whole thing. And I think that's where we kind of diverge, because you're using faith and circular reasoning to say, hey, it is true, therefore it's true.
I substantiate that faith and circular reasoning by lining up with the book. So it's not like I'm just saying, hey, this exists, it exists because it exists. I'm saying, like, it exists. I'm showing you how this works. It is real. Sin really doesn't exist because of what Jesus did. And everybody that sins is of the devil, because that is what the Bible says.
And to me, the book's wrong in a lot of places, including, as you said, it's written on my heart, because it's not. So
the law is written on your heart. Every time you do something you think is wrong, you broke that law in your heart.
Yeah, I think we're sort of going around in circles. I've already explained this.
I'll agree with that.
We've been going 2 hours, so what I'll do is I'll put a bow on this and sort of we'll wrap up. I get where you're coming from, Perry. I just, if there's one thing I would like you to leave with, it's sort of an understanding of how telling me what I know discredits you in my eyes. It weakens your position in my eyes. It doesn't make you convincing to me. In fact, it convinces me that you don't know, or you aren't accurately conveying reality, because from my side, you telling me what I know, you are wrong. So
well, I can understand it would piss you off. I understand that.
It doesn't piss me off so much as just I really find it like I have trouble taking you seriously when you say that, because you're, just as you would have trouble, like you said earlier, if I told you you don't really believe in God, you would go, yeah, who is this jackass? Yeah, exactly. That's my reaction from the upper end.
I would want to hear why you would think that. What would give me that? What would give you that impression? That's what I would ask. What would give you that impression?
Yeah, well, there are atheists out there, and I'm sure you've met them who just say, "Hey, you've just convinced yourself that God is real, and you don't really believe it. You're just, making money or doing this or doing that. You're not a real Christian." There are those people out there. I'm not one of them. I will say, "Hey, what you say you know and what you say you believe, I will take that at your word because I think that's the only way to interact honestly with people." But that brings up the point that I don't think you're interacting honestly because you won't give
Oh,
me the respect to say, "Hey, this is what you know and what you believe," because you're not giving me that respect, Perry.
but you have such an adversarial position against God. How can I respect you?
It's not
You
against God.
self-aware of sin. How can I respect that?
It's not against God. It's against religion, right? So, whether or not I
If
believe a
it
God,
was against religion, this is how I perceive it. If
yeah,
you were against religion,
mhm.
I would think that you would then compare the religions to the texts and see if they line up with their own books or not. And when
No,
you do that, then you have a you are able to level a weapon against them that they can't win against. Like for me, when I talk to somebody who says they're a believer and then they still sin, Jesus said, "Whoever sins is the servant of sin." So obviously, if they still sin, then they're not a believer. That's me leveling their own book against them. If
well,
you
we
were
are doing
against,
a atheist Bible study, Perry. It's not like we're not doing this and examining the Bible, but the point is that we don't believe it at all. So why would we? Why do we have to say which religion is right?
well, none of
Instead
them are
of saying, well, that's what we believe that none of them are right.
right.
So,
So we're on the
so
same page. That's okay. Just two
well,
sides of the spectrum.
when I say religion, I'm including you. You have religious
I have no
belief.
religion. No, I just nope. Just believe.
I guess then we're against
Religion is
theists,
for sinners.
not God. We're adversarial to theists and not God. Then I suppose if
Right.
you want to say theists, people that believe in God, because they make claims to us that they can't seem to back up.
What have I not been able to back up?
Well, everything. I mean, you
Like
can't
what?
back up how I know that God exists, and you certainly haven't shown that.
You choose to
Uh,
reject him. I mean,
made
you
a
choose
number
to
of
reject him.
claims. Well,
The
you've made a
choice,
number of
the choice
claims about
to
the Bible,
reject him.
just claims. They have no explanatory power, nor sort of have you demonstrated in any way that the
I
claims
have.
that you is true.
I
Well,
have.
well, no, you haven't.
Yeah. Every time you do something wrong for the rest of your life, now you know you sin. Now you're of the devil.
I know you've claimed that. You claim that the morals that I have come from God and the
The
book.
law written on your heart. Right. The book claims that, not me.
When we investigate, those morals seem to come from emotions that are associated with the evolution of. Um,
Anything to deny God, right, Mark? I get it.
well, that's not anything. That's sort of been
Just stretch
studied.
it anything. You'll go to anything to get around this book, no
Well,
matter
did
what.
morals on monkeys and chimpanzees' hearts as well?
They
Is
don't
that
sin. Animals don't sin, man. Animals don't feel guilt.
they do? Chimpanzees have a very highly moral sort of structure within their tribes, usually run on a sort of matriarchal system. That when a chimpanzee steals or kills another chimpanzee, usually they're thrown out of that tribe. They have
But
very structured
do
morals.
you think that chimp that did it is going to feel guilt?
Yes,
No,
animals have been shown to feel guilt before. Yeah, absolutely. They've
I've
shown
never
to,
seen that.
well, they've been shown to show empathy. Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I've seen them
Chimpanzee,
mourn. I've seen them mourn for a loss
absolutely,
of somebody,
absolutely.
but I've never seen them feel guilt for
I've
what they
seen,
do.
you've never seen a dog feel guilty,
No. And I
really?
own a dog. I own a dog. I've got a huge ass dog sitting right next to me. He'll
I've
go
seen,
dig in the garbage and get yelled at. He doesn't
yeah,
feel guilt. He feels fear out of being yelled at. That's not guilt. That's different.
yeah. I think that the current scientific consensus would definitely disagree with you, like 100% disagree with you. So
I don't
we've
have
got
anybody blocked. I unblocked everybody last night.
okay. Well,
No.
let's there. Thanks for joining me, Perry. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. I know that we didn't get any, massive conclusions today, but that's okay.
Well, we came to
But
one.
what's that?
You reject God.
Well, I mean, that's a weird kind of conclusion, I guess.
It is
I
what it
see
is.
the whole thing about accepting or rejecting God. I don't see a God to accept or reject. I reject your claim of a God. I would agree to that. Can we agree on that? You claim there's a God, I reject it.
I don't claim it. There just is.
Yeah, see, that doesn't work for me because I don't see that there is, so I'm not rejecting that
But
thing.
you existing is proof of him. There's
Yeah.
no, I
The
mean,
problem
it's
here is
according to the book.
The
That's what it
problem
is, man.
problem here is that I can't experience your God to say yes, it is, and I'm rejecting it. All I'm getting from you is a claim, right? So even though you say yes, it is, that's just another claim. This is where I don't feel you understand what a claim is. You're claiming it exists. I don't see it existing. I don't feel it existing. I don't experience it existing in any way. I don't have anything written on my heart. You're just making a
But you
claim.
do. So,
No,
so,
I don't.
so that morality that's written on your heart, you
It's
think
not written
that's
on my heart.
just, oh,
It's not written on my heart. It
oh,
comes from places. And anyway, I think there is subjective morality, and that's why morality varies so much throughout the world. And even in the Bible, the morality from the Old Testament varies quite differently than the one from the New Testament. But I mean, that's getting sidetracked again. So I don't think I would agree that I reject God. I would agree that I reject your claim of God, is what I would say. So if that's not good enough for you, well, then we haven't agreed on anything, Perry.
well, it is what it is. It just is what it is. I did enjoy
Yeah.
the chat, Mark, very much so.
All right. No worries, Perry. I'll remove you and I'll wrap up, and yeah, then I can close this thing down. But thank you for being here, and thank you for talking with me.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say to the audience before you go? Any stuff going on,
Yeah.
or what you're up to?
Jesus reconciled all things. There is no sin. There is no right and wrong. It doesn't exist. It's all in your mind. It's all about your mind. And every time somebody sins, they prove they're of the devil because the Bible says so. That's all.
Okay. Well,
Enjoy your
thanks
night,
so
Mark.
much.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you too, buddy. See you later.
Bye.
And thank you very much, people. I don't know if you'd like to, have a chat about it or me to comment on it. I guess some of the problems I had. I guess all I really wanted to do was let Perry know that sort of not giving the respect to somebody to say, hey, this is what you know and believe and think. It's very hard to take you seriously at that point. But I understand Perry's position, and I understand that he believes that. I just don't feel any reason to buy into that belief, especially as I am me. I am aware of what I think and know way better than anybody else on this earth, and I would dare you to prove otherwise. But thank you so much. Just a bit of call outs. Thank you, Megan. Love you lots. You're fantastic. Thanks, Ian. Good to see you here. Thanks for supporting me. Dan, it wasn't a debate. Well, no, it was more just a conversation, Dan. I just to let you know, I'm sort of. I must admit, and Peter's out there, and Peter, you are an absolute champion. Yeah, I was just trying to see if that was bald head or bold head, to be honest with you. Thank you so much for being here. But Peter's amazing, and he's been pushing me to create a channel. I'm kind of trying to find where my niche is, what I want to do, and what I want to do with it. I have a lot of fun going into those areas where people are just getting absolutely furious and trying to be rational and reasonable. But thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate it. I try to be patient. Look, I can lose the plot as much as anybody, I suppose, but I try to be reasonable. Minecraft, yeah, okay. Yeah, at least we can all agree, punch tree first. Yeah, but thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to wrap it up. I guess that was it was kind of frustrating, but I don't think I learned anything that I didn't know already. I don't think I learned anything that sort of Perry surprised me on. He didn't really bring any good evidence, and I feel like I have trouble sort of explaining to him what constitute good evidence. So I can probably do a bit more to sort of solidify what actually good evidence is and why we believe it. I just have a real problem with the reasons for believing something being faith and circular reasoning. Um, I I think you can get to literally anything from faith and circular reasoning. It seems like a very dangerous rabbit hole to go down. But I want to thank you for joining me, and do take care. I'm going to end the stream, and good night, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Great to see you.